Welcome to Moments, the podcast, where we have conversations that matter. Hi, everyone. My name is Vasia Makris, your host and founder of Moments, a creative agency bridging art, culture, and technology. Joined by my amazing co-host, HardArt, each week we host a live X space deep diving into hot topics that are shaping the Web3 ecosystem. GM, and another one bites the dust. Milton, nice song choice for that introduction. Oh man, we're going to have a very interesting conversation today. Thank you guys all for joining, and welcome to episode 15 of Moments, the podcast. I'm super excited to kick off this conversation because honestly, I want to hear from the crowd and from the community today. I think there's a lot of questions I have, and hopefully some of you guys can answer them or just share ideas. But before we really jump into it, I want to get as many people in here as possible. I'm going to just ask everyone to do me a favor. Let's retweet the space, massage the algo, as Milton likes to say. Maybe comment below, throw a GM in the comment section. Let's just get the space pumping a little bit. And for those that are kind of new, I do see some new faces as well. I want to just give a quick introduction. My name is Vasia Makris, your co-host, and also founder of Moments, the creative agency. At the agency, we focus on art, culture, and technology, and specifically in terms of bridging different industries and creating experiences aimed to really connect, inspire, and impact those around us. So we focus on working with brands and really onboarding the masses into Web3, as well as working with different creators and hosting events and different productions. So we've had experience working with Trevor Jones, with Transient Labs, with Gabe Weiss, and a bunch of others. I'm also super excited to announce a few hopefully upcoming brand partnerships and collaborations in 2025 that we're working to finalize some contracts with. And I guess to segue into the podcast, this is a new kind of division of the agency we launched a few months ago. And first of all, very grateful that HardArt has been such an amazing co-host, has been here along for the ride. And the more importantly, the focus of the podcast was to really not only have our kind of finger on the pulse to better help me serve different clients and conversations that I'm in, but also just stay in tune with the community and create a positive environment in which the community feels comfortable sharing and having honestly difficult conversations like the one we're having today. I have a tweet pinned up top if you guys want to just give the agency a follow. We also just launched a newsletter, kind of keeping everyone up to date. So would love for people to subscribe and follow and stay up to date. Milton, I'm going to hand you the mic because I would love for you to introduce yourself to the community. For those that maybe are not familiar, make sure to give HardArt. He's not only an amazing DJ, but a great co-host. Make sure to give him a follow, and I'll let him kind of introduce himself. Go ahead, Milton.
GM. Yeah, I hope that song choice wasn't too soon, but we have to add a little bit of humor in here today. Some of the darker days that we've experienced, but nonetheless, it's always darkest before the dawn. But yes, I am HardArt. I am fortunate enough to have Vasia include me in on this Beautiful Moments podcast where we've gotten great engagement and great discussions around Web3. I've been a collector since 2020 and have hosted content, mainly interviews with a lot of the Web3 community creators and collectors and curators, etc. And I have been lucky enough also to be included in on some community building done with Trevor Jones, as Vasia mentioned, where I've also a conference maxi running around with some of these crazy people in Web3. So having a good time doing it, hoping that we find some ways to keep us all here as we experience some people going down and some platforms not making it. But yeah, I'm curious to hear what the response is to do. I know that there is a solution to all this, and we've got some very smart people in our space. So I'm excited to hear the reactions and some ideas that people have today about how we keep this space alive and thriving. So looking forward to getting it started. Vasia, I'll hand it back over to you.
Yeah, let's kick it off. I mean, essentially, I'm assuming everyone has seen it, but in case you haven't, it's pinned up top. Last Thursday, MakersPlace made an announcement. They tweeted that they're exiting, and after 6 years of operating, they're going to be shutting down. I honestly originally saw you post a screenshot, and I thought it was a joke, but when I actually read through the thread, I mean, obviously it's real. They've been around since 2018. MakersPlace has worked with not only major artists, but big brands and a lot of big IPs. They raised $30 million in their Series A funding round for both venture capital and entertainment companies. So people involved included former Sotheby's CEO, Coinbase Ventures, and even M&M. So they were big boys, and they had a lot of established people supporting them. I've had experience working with them. I'm sure a lot of people have had experience either minting or collecting and working with the MakersPlace team. And so I was honestly really, really shocked by this type of announcement. I do want to mention that in the tweet above, they have on their thread, they have a link to a full article that kind of explains a bit more about their decision. I originally was under the impression that, okay, they ran out of money, which was a little mind blowing because 30 million is a lot of money to run out of. But upon further reading the article, I found out it wasn't the case. They basically state, despite our existing runway with these market conditions, we anticipate significant challenges in securing further investment, which would make it difficult, if not impossible, to pursue our mission to champion digital art, sustain operations, and deliver meaningful returns to our shareholders. Essentially, what I understood from this is that art sales are not profitable or sustainable to keep a business running. And with a company that was relying on only investor money to remain running, they essentially saw no end in sight and decided to pull the plug now and return any unused funds to investors. So to me, essentially, they're taking an L and lessening the burn because they know that they're not going to be able to sustain themselves independently of investor funding. So I, of course, had an initial reaction, but before I share my takes, Milton, I wanted to get yours. What was your initial reaction on hearing the MakersPlace announcement? Milton, are you there?
Also shocked and saddened by the news. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there was a delay. I'm so sorry. Go for it. I think he's crying. Milton, are you there?
Yeah, shocked, dismayed, surprised, saddened, all of the above. Obviously, come back in. Sorry about that.
Milton, maybe jump out and come back in because I think Maker's Place isn't the only rug right now. Um, Jen, I know you're on stage. Can you hear Milton? Is it just me?
No, I can't hear him, Vasia.
No, okay, thank you. Okay, Milton, maybe jump out and come back in. I guess I'll share my initial takes. Um, yeah, I mean, it was definitely shocking and discouraging and definitely feeling a bit defeated. I mean, I know everyone has their own personal experience, but I walked away from a full-time, very successful, sustainable, and safe career back in 2021 to be full-time in Web3. And I don't regret it for a minute, but I think it's definitely concerning when we're noticing major holes in this industry. And it's definitely, in my perspective, like the industry is hemorrhaging and we continue to put these kind of band-aids on instead of getting to the root cause and the root problem. And I'm not saying I have the answers and all the solutions, but I definitely believe that we need to start having certain hard conversations in order to hopefully get to a better solution. I think initially upon reading it, and I know the community had a lot of reactions, and I've been reading through a bunch of tweets. I found it really interesting because a lot of people were talking about the artists. And honestly, when I first read the Maker's Place announcement, I immediately thought of the collectors. And it's really scary, I think, from a collector's perspective, collectors who have come in and invested a lot of money and honestly, I feel like there's no proof of concept. Like we're not seeing a sustainable primary market, let alone a secondary market. And so this goes very much beyond just Maker's Place as a platform. And it opens up, I think, the larger conversation of how sustainable is this ecosystem. And we're going to dive into that a little bit later. I don't want to get too deep into that conversation first. Milton, I see you're back. So I'm going to hopefully cross our fingers and see if we can get you back on stage okay. But I would love to hear more about your initial response as well before we kind of go around the room and share the mic as well. Milt, are you back with us? I lost the co-host. I don't know. Jen, I'm going to hand you the mic very quickly.
Yeah.
Any initial reactions you kind of want to share with us?
So my initial reaction actually was to think of the friends that work there. I had the good fortune over the last, I'd say, like 3 to 4 months to interact more with the Maker's Place team, like Klaus and Man, and also Rob. And so I guess I just thought of them first and was thinking like how that must have hit them and, like just thinking, how they're going to transition and wishing them all the best So that was kind of like where I directed my energy. I just wanted to send love their way. I know Klaus has taken up painting. So I was like, I can't wait to see the new paintings now that you're going to have this time, and just like sending that kind of like light to the homies. And then I guess once I started thinking about it more, I did think of the artists, I did think of the collectors, but I'm the type of person, to be honest with you, like when something like comes up and it sort of like shocks, I allow that to sort of maybe take 15 minutes tops of my time before I sort of switch gears and start thinking of like what possible solutions, what's the next step. And so I put out a post and I hope it didn't come across as like too harsh sounding, but like, come on, like not the same millennials and Gen Xers who have gone through insane amounts of stuff. You know, I feel like the brightest minds are here. And I don't have a shadow of a doubt that we are going to figure out solutions that are going to make this more sustainable. And so that I put out there, and also just started like getting information on things like, for example, IPFS, Arweave, what platforms are doing. So I know I put something under Amadon's thread of like, you know, where should we be sort of pivoting to? And I put some suggestions. I think the folks at Transient and Build Tree, as well as Manifold, have always seen the importance of decentralization and empowering artists to not only create their own contracts and to have their own mint pages, but also, you know, like the next step, which is more nuanced, learning about IPFS, learning about Arweave. And Brian Brinkman touched on this on a space I attended yesterday. And I think on the whole, when things like this happen, there is always a blessing and a lesson, even when it's like really shitty. And I think that this is going to give everybody an opportunity to improve their practices as an artist or as a collector. And it'll probably mature the space on the whole. So I'm seeing it as like a net positive. That's just how I deal with things though in life. So everybody's like, you know, feelings are valid around it. And again, just wishing everybody on that team nothing but the best wherever they go.
Always so eloquent and always just a ray of sunshine. Jennifer, thank you so much for sharing. And I'm with you. This is meant to be a productive conversation and one that we can really learn and elevate from. And I do see a couple people from the MakersPlace team down below. First of all, I just want to say thank you guys for all the hard work and everything that you've done to build this industry and really be at the forefront of it. There's one thing that if you know me and have been in conversations, the only reason I resonated with MakersPlace was because of the team. And it was less about the platform and some of the other things involved in the background. I do want to welcome everyone to the stage. If there is something that they want to share and kind of chime in from obviously a team member's perspective, you guys are more than welcome to. I do think that we have Milton back, so I'm going to try to hand him the mic before we kind of make our way around the room and kick off the conversation. Milton, are you back with us?
Hey, I'm here. So, yes, sorry about the rug. Initial reactions, I think that's a great way to look at it, Jennifer, is looking at people first. So I'm with you. I want to echo that. Hernán is a great friend of mine. Aisha, Kat, Klaus, obviously Rob was a new addition there. I thought that was a big vote of confidence actually for the platform. Perrine, just a host of talent that's at MakersPlace. So that was surprising to hear, especially as they had seemed to be building the team even stronger and hosting recent great events like at Art Basel that we attended with Atomic Forum. I chose to stay there all day because they put on such a good event. So, they revamped the platform. It was more of a curated, no new artist type of feel to where they were going to work with their existing artists and really build a stable of strong artistry there around people they had confidence in. So I thought things were looking on the up and up for MakersPlace. At the end of the day, I think a lot of the business models that have been established in Web3 simply aren't sustainable. We're always kind of comparing ourselves to TradArt in a lot of ways, and the gallery model there in TradArt typically takes 50%. So to take something less than that, is a risk. So there's always the argument of what the platform does for you, and that's for a separate conversation. But these platforms now like Rodeo are taking 25%. So maybe that is a more sustainable model. Time will tell. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you totally, Jennifer, about the people. And I would also agree with you that there will be a solution that comes out of this. It's always darkest before the dawn, as I mentioned earlier. And I think we're in a room full of really, really smart people. There are a lot of creator tools at artist disposal right now. Discoverability, I think, is always the challenge when you get into artists providing for themselves and using these creator-centric tools, which is why Rodeo, I think, has become such a champion in the space, because discoverability is being championed for great discoverability right now in the space. But yeah, we'll see. I think we'll come out bigger, better, and stronger. Not sure how quickly that will take. It might be some time before something successful emerges, but I know we've got a lot of great people in the crowd today. They're going to have good feedback on what that might look like in the future.
Yeah, and very quickly, Milton, just to add on, I want to focus on the community's responses as kind of the first point of the conversation. And I just want to remind everyone as well, you're more than welcome to request and come jump on stage. It's meant to be very much a community-driven conversation. And if you're not able to speak, feel free, go through the comments, leave your remarks down below. I definitely go through those during the space as well. I did see Drew with a hand up, but before I jump there, I just pinned up a tweet up top, honestly, because it made me laugh. There was someone that wrote, first known origin, then foundation, now MakersPlace, and they basically ended the tweet by writing, "Are we the musicians on the Titanic?" AKA, as the ship is sinking, are we just sitting here playing music and ignoring the fact that we're sinking? I just really loved that analogy. I thought it was funny. I was very refreshing to see many of the comments down below were actually very positive, similar to Jennifer and her comment just now. So it sounds like overall the space is taking this in a very kind of positive direction. So as we kind of go around the stage and share those initial reactions, I just wanted to bring that up. But Drew, go ahead. GM, and thank you for joining us. The mic is all yours.
All right. Well, hats off to MakersPlace. I mean, they had an incredible run. I went to Zero Expo, which is OX Project's conference in 2020, and Anne Marie Alanis had a MakersPlace exhibition there, and that's how I learned about NFTs. And I went on to collect like 20,000 NFTs, and I bought a lot on MakersPlace. So without them, I think a lot of artists wouldn't have had entry, because in 2020 and before especially, it was really hard to make NFTs. Like if you weren't a dev, there weren't a lot of places to turn. And so Known Origin and MakersPlace, a lot of these places allowed people to tokenize things where they wouldn't have been able to. And that also gave collectors access. Um, they had wonderful events. They had a great team. And I think it is tough to have so many employees and to have these exchanges where they're trying to bridge that gap between Web 2 and Web 3. And what I wanted to come up and say is I just want people to zoom out a little bit and think about tokenization started in what, 2024, 2025, it just being possible. And now we're in this age of indiscernibility where you can't tell what's AI and what's not. So the fact that we were able to tokenize art in this small time frame of 7-8 years is remarkable. And so I feel personally that we're gonna get over this stumble in the road with a couple of these companies shutting down. We have something immensely valuable on our hands, which is these digital assets that are tokenized, and it has that timestamp. So my pinned article talks about this. It's a really important time frame that we're entering. But I think tokenization of art that's provably human made will age incredibly well. And I look forward to MakersPlace assets performing incredibly well in that atmosphere.
Thank you, Drew, for bringing that up. Honestly, that's huge. The fact that there was an in-person event that kind of onboarded you in, and you mentioned your pinned tweet. Please, if you want to drop that in the comments, I would love to just be able to reference that later as well. But I think that's massive. And honestly, what made MakersPlace stand out compared to a lot of the other marketplaces is their emphasis on the in-person events and exhibitions, but also how consistent they were. They didn't just do one or two and kind of a pop-up or a spin-off. They were very consistent and also pretty well executed. And I don't give that compliment out easily. So it does say a lot, especially especially what they did in Marfa with Jeremy Booth, I thought was massive. They had something down in Miami this year as well, and they were consistently just trying to plan out more of these spaces, as well as the recent artist residency program. So they went beyond the traditional, just I guess, normal marketplace to try to really have an impact on board, elevate artists. And so I just want to mention and emphasize, I guess, echo what you just mentioned, Drew. It does also take a lot of overhead to do that. So yeah, definitely a great point that you brought up, and something that we should just take a second to really appreciate about MakersPlace. Not many other platforms, I think, have made that effort. So it definitely, they stand out in my eyes because of that. Jennifer, I did see a hand up before. I don't know if you had something you wanted to add or a response, but go ahead if you did.
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to say that when it did happen, Mirajita was vocal, but also like in the One Love X chats, we had some, back and forth, healthy back and forth. And I think I just, I always come at it from the place of like, there are solutions to every problem. Just be positive. And in a recent space that we had, I recommended just some simple things that I think could be effective. I think marketplaces are fantastic. All of these tools that we now have as creators are great. Um, but I think a lot of this is very heavily involved into like our phones, for lack of a better way of framing it. Like we're on Twitter and on IG a lot. And so, what I was encouraging members who were listening on the space to do was to consider kind of going back to basics. Like, why don't you have just something as simple as like a pizza party where you invite some of your friends who, for whatever reason, you've never had the conversation of Web3 or your art or crypto art in general about? Like, have them over, have white walls up or have black dove up on the screen, and show them what it actually means to display this type of art on a larger scale, and how it is that they could go about doing that. Like, how can you collect and own this art? And, like maybe introduce them to simpler products like Rodeo that, you can interface with, or Crossmint and things of this nature, because I think a lot of this is on us, to be honest. And I think that we all play an individual role in seeing our art careers succeed, as well as seeing, these other components of the ecosystem succeed. So I think, maybe we could just do those kinds of things too. Conferences are awesome. These large events are super important. But I think that's a challenge that I'm going to be giving to myself. And I definitely challenged others to think about. Like, what if we just started having like little house parties and more of a direct sales kind of approach to things? Let's see what that could bring.
Love that.
Yeah, I specifically, Jennifer, just to add on, that stuck out to me a lot last week when we had Kayvon on from Rodeo to talk more about, I guess his approach was the word of mouth, and how can you get someone in your everyday life to really get involved? It's platforms like Rodeo, because they are so accessible, easy to use. You don't need the crypto. You could just use your credit card and an email. So I'm definitely with you, and actually sparks a question that I had about marketplaces in general. Like, do we think that they're necessary, and are they needed? And that was one thing I wanted to just ask everybody as like a larger conversation. But for me specifically, in terms of mainstream adoption, there were marketplaces like Nifty Gateway and even MakersPlace that I onboarded friends and family because they were so easy to use. It was an email, it was a credit card, it was the easy to use interface. And more importantly, I knew that they were vetted, like they were curated platforms. And I know that was a bit of a touchy conversation because Web3 is meant to not, gatekeep and all of that. But in my opinion, we still needed that, especially in the earlier stages. I think it's really important to have one location where all this art is congregated, and it's also, again, vetted. And not like OpenSea. Like OpenSea to me is eBay. Anyone can go on there. Anyone can mint. I don't know what people are minting. I would never tell my mom to go mint something on OpenSea. But a platform like MakersPlace, like Nifty Gateway, I feel a bit more comfortable recommending friends and family to join and start collecting. So I guess my whole question to people that aren't necessarily for marketplaces, or believe that we don't necessarily need marketplaces because there are alternative creator tools, in all honesty, for me, it's kind of, again, how do we onboard, or how do we provide a safe and secure alternative to for artists and for collectors, for new people that want to get involved and start collecting. So not this is just kind of an open-ended question for anyone that might want to tackle that, but I do see two hands up. So if they're related to the conversation, Milton, I'll let you go next because you're the co-host. So go ahead.
Yeah, something just occurred to me about the barriers. I think it's big what Jenny touched on in that you got to bring this down to people's levels. And so we are in this little weird niche bubble where we all understand and have been through the trials and tribulations of having a wallet, probably getting hacked, losing money, which is never a fun experience. I don't know how many of your friends are going to endure that and stick around. Probably not many. But it's going to be these interesting ideas that you're seeing to bring it to the masses. You touched on rodeo. I think another thing that just came to mind was what we saw NFT Now and LG Art Lab do. All of a sudden, you own this LG TV and a Brian Brinkman edition of 100 is on your screen. If there were an easy way, something like MoonPay, something that connects to Apple Pay, like Slingshot or onboards people into meme coins, for example, through traditional means of payment that they're familiar with, like Apple Pay. Having these type of experiences, I think, is what's going to bring people into the ecosystem, especially outsiders, which we're all dying to do. I think we're living through this war of attrition right now. Platforms aren't the only ones, you might have noticed. There are also people leaving the space in mass, unfortunately. A lot of artists have gone quiet years ago. A lot of collectors can't stomach the fact that what they've invested in is just not visible. It's not being traded. There's no secondary. But having these massive onboarding experiences, I think is what's really important. So I love the idea of the IRL pizza party for one, having this on your TV, what NFT Now, Brian Brinkman and LG Art Lab did, I think is a great initiative. I would love to see more ideas like this put into practice. But yeah, happy to hand the mic over to a couple more people with their hands up. I see Maine Mariners in the building. Haven't heard from him in a while. Maine Mariner, I want to pass the mic to you. GM, how you doing?
Hey, check. Can you hear me? I'm in a car, so I don't know how this will sound.
No, perfect. Thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm good as long as my microphone doesn't make me sound like I have a lisp. Sometimes that happens. It's like the most annoying thing ever. I don't have a lisp. I don't know why it does that, but hopefully I don't. Anyway.
You sound
And other things.
spectacular, Maine Mariner. Spectacular.
Stop it,
Go
Milton.
ahead.
You're making me embarrassed. Anyway, yeah, thank you, Milton. Thank you, Vaz. Appreciate it. Good to see everyone. Hi, everyone here. Lots of great and fabulous builders and believers I can see. That comes with no surprise because great usually attracts great. You guys have already covered a lot of really good things, and obviously I'm driving. I had to turn over to the side of the road because I'm like, oh my God, I gotta say something. But man, I mean, you covered a lot here, and you've touched on all the like little things and nuances that brought me to this space today. And mine, what really brought me to here was my reactions to, hearing MakersPlace go down. That's not good news. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I know people from there. I've purchased from there. I've seen collectors from there. I mean, that is a spear to the heart in the thing that I adore and love. And that's this NFT space, this art world, and the empowerment that will come with it. So that's not good news, guys. It's not. We've already touched on a bunch of things like, do we need a gateway? This is a gateway we absolutely need. We need things like this. We need things with people who are so passionate about the space and true believers who are building the space and people with lots of friggin' money. I mean, $30 million. I didn't even know it was that big of a deal. And it costs that much to even operate that type of system. But you see like the amount of important things that must come together to build on this space that we love. And again, this is not good news. It's not. It's just another thing crashing. It's not the end of the world. And yes, Jenny, we need to remain positive, but we also have to remain realistic. So it's like damage control. I love Vasia, how you always take the helm and you always throw out these things, whether it be morality on how we proceed, but how we're going to sustain the fort and the thing we truly believe in. Another reason why I absolutely adore the things you're doing, my dear. I truly mean that. We really need a place like this. We need it to be simple, like you said, Milton. It needs to have the simplicity to on-ramp. It needs to have the vetting that you mentioned, Vaz. It needs to have that credibility. Like, it needs to. New people will not come into this industry otherwise. You start your journey with crypto, which is already ridiculous as hell for people to conceive, and people will. I mean, NFTs are a 2030 play. I don't care what anyone says. I've stuck to that this whole damn time. But right now, the world is about to wake up to crypto. We know this. You've got the president of the United States backing it, blah, 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 blah. Everybody knows all this jazz. Guess what? It's happening. The prophecies are coming true. But it takes time to do it. And when you want to bring these new nerds in, they're not all nerds like us. I'm like a dumb nerd. I can't do shit, and I've been doing this forever. But if you need to bring new people in, like just regular people who don't hang out on X and are like us, because we know who we are, you need to have it simple. You need to have the credit cards. You need to have the PayPal. You need to have the Apple. You need to have all those goddamn things. They have to be so goddamn simple. I can't stress that enough. Because it's so difficult. You're like, crypto, what the hell's that? Wallet, holy shit. I don't even know what's going on. What is this random code? Okay, cool. But if you can go on, which I've experienced all levels of ridiculousness here. I've done it all. If you can just go on and do as you said, get on a nifty gateway, get onto whatever, and simplify it through that process, then you buy your first piece of art, you experience that thing, you know it's vetted, you know it's not some sketchy dude with AI, tells the whole story. There's a comfort to that, and that's a comfort that this space needs. Losing MakersPlace is seriously breaking my heart. It is a step backward that I'm not saying it's the end, I'm not a doomsayer, believe me, I'm optimistic, believe in that, but it is not good news. So it's things like moments. I mean, Vaz, you're a leader. You could do that eventually. That could be your next big thing. You know, I don't know where you're going to get $30 million for, but I do know you know some big players in the game, and it's not impossible to do. I truly believe that. It's not about money to you. It's more about what we can do with it, and that's where I'm on board with that. But anyway, I could talk all day about this, but it was really shocking to me. And just one good reason I just want to bring up for a thing I'm trying to help an artist out with. We talked about like the self-contracts, the decentralization. I think that's essential too. But there's so much difficulty with it and like real world shit that happens where custody actually makes sense. And an example I've had is one of my favorite artists. He fucking died last year. It broke my heart. And I've been trying to help the family. And he was a great one. There's no doubt about it. And there's a difficulty with that to explaining to these people who don't even understand how to get these assets back. And I don't know if anybody's had a death in the family. How you get stuff back is such a pain in the ass, like estate planning, all that jazz. But then you throw in crypto, it's a whole other level of annoyingness. I mean, I have sent these people on an adult Easter egg hunt to find like the crypto wallets explaining the shit and how do we do that. I reached out to MakersPlace the other day, for example, to find out, hey, how can I get this family in touch with this? I got to reach out to Super Rare, Nifty, all these guys. That's where like that custody makes it a little easier. If it's in their custody, I can be like, all right, so all of his artwork is preserved. It's safe. It's not hidden in some secret contract wallet that with 16 goddamn words that nobody understands and whatnot. Like there is a benefit to that, and that is the future, guys. I'm sorry, decentralization is awesome. I love the decentralization of like Bitcoin, the ordinals, where if you burn it all down, it's still stamped there forever. You're not going to change that. IPFS or whatever the heck that is. I don't even know what's going on there. Maybe it's there, maybe it's not. When you lose things like this, it's stressful as hell. I'm a collector on all goddamn platforms. I have squandered so much goddamn money on this stupid system that I believe so much in, and I wouldn't change a thing because I'm a dumbass. I'm an Alexander Dumas. So I will continue to fight this goddamn fight, and we will get this done, but it's going to be hard, and you need these centralized things to help us get there because people are centralized. They're not going to jump into this nerdery without it. And again, like there's a lot of problems with it being decentralized sometimes. And me personally, again, is the death of somebody. It makes it very goddamn difficult to get the art. You're like, how do we get this? And I've been trying to help people with that recently, and I don't know. I just had to come and say at least something to do with this subject. This is one of many things. I could literally ramble to you all for hours and entertain you with my insanity, but for now, that's all I got.
Thank you so much for joining. First of all, it's just amazing to hear your voice. It's been a minute since we had a chance to catch up, but thank you for taking the time for joining. And honestly, we're very much on the same page. I like to call myself an optimistic realist because what you said is very true. Like this is sad, and I don't want to like go over it too quickly, but the fact that literally one of the OG marketplaces, like we're talking Super and Nifty Gateway, MakersPlace, like these were the leaders and the OGs, and it is absolutely going to have a ripple effect across the rest of the community. And I do appreciate the fact that you slowed us down and really emphasized this, because it's not even the fact that they ran out of 30 million, guys. They didn't run out of the 30 million. they gave up and they said, hey, investors, take your money back because this isn't it. They threw the towel. And that to me is even more concerning and even worse. I wish they had run out of the 30 million and that was why they chose to give up. The fact that they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, the fact that they have the funding to continue operating, but are saying, hey, this idea is not sustainable. We're not going to be able to generate enough money on art sales to make this a sustainable and self-sufficient platform. We're out. That to me is more concerning and also just turns into a larger conversation around what we're building in Web3. Like, is this a sustainable ecosystem or do we need to start pivoting or think of other ideas like other revenue streams? Main Marin, I think you unmuted. So if you have anything to add to that very quick, by all means, jump in.
Oh, sorry, I did that, but I did want to say, no, we absolutely have to take this opportunity. I mean, it's not an opportunity. We have to take this moment and deal with the situation. It is what it is. It wasn't, it's not an ideal situation to have it, but again, it is not the end of this road. But why people are backing out at this moment, I have to admit, I'm like, what the hell do these motherfuckers know that I don't? Like, because if they're throwing around this kind of money, these people aren't stupid. They are connected with people. They have networks that might even be more fancy than ours. They go to very lavish crypto galleries and all this other stuff. But it makes no sense to me. We talk about, oh, it's 50-50 split, traditional market, oh, they get this. Bullshit. I see galleries all the time making boy band money and doing that, and they have to operate a business, pay employees, all that shit. This is like a cyber journey. I'm like, $30 fucking million. I was like a little shocked by that number. I'm like, $30 million, I could build a goddamn crypto capital. Like, I don't even understand how could you possibly need all that money? So it makes me really wonder. It's like you think about, we need people to go all these fancy castle parties where I met some very fine people from this particular business of topic, or like, we need to go to NFT New York. I'm so fabulous. Oh, I got to go to the Tennessee party for Bitcoin and meet President Trump at his fucking Galleria. Like, $30 million can't fucking get it done. I mean, I don't get scared often, but I definitely am asking myself, is there something I don't fucking know here? And truth be told, there's a lot of stuff I don't know, so I wouldn't be surprised. But it literally makes me wonder, does it change my belief in the future of what's going on here? Absolutely not. But the game needs to evolve like anything. You're going to have players that kick some ass sometimes, and then they die another. Who knows? Maybe the rich people who backed it were like, hey, I need a tax write-off. Maybe they're just like, all right, we're going to scare all these meatheads and do this, then we're going to buy it up at 10 cents on the dollar in 6 months when crypto crashes, or it never does. Or maybe they're just going to let it ride on the next 6 months to a year on the crypto wave. Like, fuck, why would I leave it in stupid art, which isn't going to do anything till 2030, when I could make fucking $10 billion on what Trump's about to do with goddamn policy? Like, it could just be that easy, guys. So, I don't know. I do not give up here. We just need to start from the ground up. You start with genuine, you build genuine with the badass people like you see in this room, and you get something beautiful. So let's get started there. I have a moment of your time. Thank you.
I have a
Go ahead. Whoever's about to speak, I was going to say a
yeah.
bunch of hands were shooting up while
I
you
have
were
a very
talking.
unique
So
perspective
go
on
for it.
this. So I think that it's so insider. So I so if it's somebody, so I see a couple people in here that know me. So I kind of so I got first turned on to NFTs. So I've been in crypto its entirety of its history. And then I got turned on to NFTs in 2017 at this event called Ethereal Summit at Knockdown Center in New York. And that was the first time I saw crypto art and crypto enter the art world. And then I got on this app called Clubhouse on December 6th of 2020, and I had the first large crypto conversations on there. And then when the crypto bros took over that conversation, I exited and went into a room full of artists. And I started onboarding artists into NFTs, and artists really drove the revival of crypto through NFTs. And then I explained that community was the value. And 4 or 5 months later, Gary Vee said the same thing. And then Bored Ape said, and then all the different marketplaces started hiring me. So my first marketplace we launched was Curio. Curio, we did TV licensed NFTs, and we did the first ones. We did American Gods, and then we did a couple of other ones, and worked with Eric Alexander. I left there in 2 months because they utilized the same vault system that Nifty Gateway utilizes, and that system doesn't have transactions on chain. And as a person that was inside of the community as well, I understood how dangerous that was, that they didn't have to have transactions on chain. So that's why we had $1,000 NFTs at launch, but they went down in value because they tried to silo themselves in that system. Next, I got hired by and also too MakersPlace. I love Aisha and everything like that. So also I got hired by the next place was called One Of. So I years ago or maybe 6 months before, I had been told that a job was on the thing, and I was the first hire of Quincy Jones Music Marketplace. I went to that job and I quit within 2 weeks because once again they were attempting to figure out how to fit the rocket engine inside the horse and utilize the same methodologies of business practices that were passed and make these NFTs collectibles. But they're not collectibles because they actually have a value on chain. They have a different type of thing. Then I went to work with Bob Dylan's family, and I've worked with Sony Universal. My last job I turned down was NBC Universal, VP of Web3. So I've got a different perspective on a lot of these things. And then lastly, I just want to explain why that $30 million is so dangerous and why they gave the money back. So when you take VC money, what's happening is when we take money, I'm promising them an outcome. And the outcome and the formula of these VCs to their LPs that they justify is a math equation. It's triple, triple, double, double. So that means my revenue, if I hit 1 million ARR, then I have to annual recurring revenue, then I have to do 3 million the next year, 9 million the next year, 18 million the next year, and then 36 million. So for them to justify that math, what they had to do was return $90 million, $270 million, $540 million, and then $1.8 billion to be able to do that in 4 years, to be able to justify that investment.
Can I
And
can I
so
jump in? I'm so sorry not to cut you off, but I wanted to clarify, I guess, to return that investment, and I guess the plan was to do so through art sales only. Is that the model? Am I missing anything?
I'm not inside. I'm not actually inside of their business practices. Or else I probably would have told him, like, let's go launch a token, let's go get a whole bunch of money, let's use art as a point of leverage to get people interested in. But I wasn't necessarily ever I know the staff there. I know the staff at all the marketplaces, for whether it's Alex's marketplace, Rarible, or any of these different marketplaces. I'm familiar with them and they're familiar with me. But no, I don't know what their plan was, but I just know that outcome wise, I know that their transactions has slowed down on all of these marketplaces for NFTs. And I think that they thought, just like I think that it was Mariner or somebody, or maybe it was another room that I was in earlier. They were like, they hit a room where they hit a way where they thought the market was going to continue to go up, and then it didn't. Well, they raised on that proposition that the market was going to continue to move in the same direction from the point of raise. And I don't think that they were able to do that. And so and I don't believe that they could have built $1 billion, and this is actual money that they're making, not valuation. Those are two different conversations. I don't believe that they could have returned $1 billion in revenue in the next 4 years or any of these marketplaces. And then in the beginning, when I got onboarded in 2017 or 28, when I got onboarded in 2018, the normal thing was for an artist to create their own website that sold their own NFTs, and then they utilized Rarible's SDK or OpenSea's SDK on the back end. And I always thought we were going to go back in that direction. And I think as an artist, as an individual artist, that is a great direction to think about, creating your own and teaming up with someone technical, or creating your own website. It wouldn't take you more than 7 days of learning to create your
Crypto
own
is real.
website that sells your NFTs.
I'm going to jump in there real quick because I think that's a great point that you touched on. And I've seen some back and forth on this issue because a lot of people are going back to saying, hey, look, this is the promise of Web3 was to be able to go to direct to consumer. Now, that being said, we know that you can't go around clicking on any link. And a lot of people, especially if they're discovering new artists, then they're not necessarily going to trust that artist's website. So this is where I think we come into play with people like Transient Labs, people like Manifold. And I wanted to transition a little bit over to that and how we see the future of this shaping up with those people that are trying to help artists create the tools that they need to survive in this industry, but also bring in some trust factor there. So
Actually, Milton, before we do, very quickly, I see Hernán was able to join the stage, who directly worked with MakersPlace. So I want to give him the mic to kind of get his take, say hello, and kind of give us his inside perspective. Hernán, welcome, welcome. How are you?
Wow, GM fam. It's definitely been a while. I've been on hiatus from Twitter for about a month and a half now. Yeah, it's good to be back. It's good to be back on the spaces. I want to thank everyone who is here. I'm Hernán Ortiz. I'm Animalísimo. I've been with MakersPlace now for a little over 3 years, so quite a while. I'm an art director, or I guess was an art director and project manager there. And yeah, look, the outcome has been sad. So that really is what I've taken a couple of like multi-pronged approach to my work at MakersPlace. Right, the first is how to do this as best and as ethically and responsibly as I can. The second is how do I work with great elite top artists that I've collected and that are well known in the space, while also simultaneously being able to create and provide an atmosphere and a platform with which I can also elevate other artists who are not as well known, but whose work I truly love and believe in, and who should, in my opinion, also have that platform for people to be able to recognize them, and have them understand at least my reasons as to why. And then also, just how do I create different, unique, new, innovative drops, both as it comes to the artwork itself and the mechanisms with which we create these drops and these exhibitions. I have to say that I accomplished all the goals that I set out for myself when I first entered MakersPlace, and I believe that and know that we did great, amazing work there. I think it's very easy to criticize and judge from an outside perspective, as has been done here today, which I will get into a little bit more, without the nuance and context needed with which to make a more informed, with which to form a more informed opinion. And so, that being said, there's just so much that sort of needs to be addressed and clarified in this topic of discussion. Um, Look, before I even get into that, I think it's important for us to note and understand that while yes, this was a big deal, in the great context and in the great scheme of things, like, we can't kid ourselves. We have to understand that we are um, in a market of luxury goods, right? We are buying and selling artwork, and art is a luxury commodity, and usually the first thing that tends to go when people are struggling. And it's definitely without a doubt that people in this world are struggling right now. It's a hard time, for many of us here in this space, but also others who are not in this space. People are struggling with trying to survive wars, right? Trying to survive wars, trying to have enough food to eat, and keeping, their places. Rents are high. I mean, people are struggling. And that's the first thing that I want to mention, that, everything has its context. That being said, it, like I said before, is really sad that Makerspace is gone. Makerspace was definitely one of the first platforms that I trusted and went on, and to me, uh, created a level of legitimacy that allowed me to engage with this industry during a time when there were no standards, There were no standards. There wasn't much education. Things were very complex. MetaMask was not so easy to deal with. And in a world where everything was decentralized, figure it out for yourself.
Milton, I don't know if it's just me, but I keep losing Hernán halfway
So,
through.
you know,
Hernán, I'm so sorry.
it's sad to see a platform like that go. It's also sad for symbolic reasons because you understand that an era is coming to an end. And look, it's hard right now. It's not only hard for artists; it's also hard for marketplaces. And figuring out what the formula is a trial and error. Like in anything else, if you look at all of the great booms, as far back as you can go, I think I can go as far back as maybe the internet boom when I didn't really understand business. There were a lot of business that went bust, right? And no one knew what the internet.
Hernán, I keep losing you. Do you want to maybe try to reconnect? Just like jump off. I don't know if you can hear me, but I think you have a lot of great things to say, and I would love to.
Yeah,
Hey, can you hear me? There we go. Okay.
yeah,
I
I can
wanted to
hear
ask you
you.
specifically, you mentioned like the formula for marketplaces. Do you think we have that figured out at the moment?
Yep, I was definitely getting into that. I think the answer is no. I think that there's a really great conflict between artists and I guess artists slash people who are all about decentralization and, in my opinion, marketplaces. I think that formula is off. I think marketplaces don't charge enough for the work that they do. We all work extremely hard at MakersPlace. You have people who are really smart, who are capable, who went to Ivy League schools, who went to law schools, who came from companies like Apple and Stash, and our founders founded interest. We're the first employees there, and they could be anywhere else, and they chose to be at MakersPlace because they believed in what was going on. But the truth of the matter, and so that goes to say that, you know, they could have had salaries larger elsewhere, but chose to be at MakersPlace. Money is important. Money does matter. Business can simply not operate without money. It's what makes things go. And so the formula is definitely off. 15%, 20% is not enough. Not for the work that you need people to do in order for there to be, excellent curation, or at least great curation, for great channels of distribution, for great marketing, for great visibility. Marketplaces have to do those things. And in order to do those things, you need people, you need work, you need hands, you need brain power. And no, the answer is that formula is not out there yet. And I think that we look at these things without nuance and without context. And sure, there was, I don't know how much money exactly, 30 million, 25 million, whatever amount was tossed around. I think that there's maybe a number somewhere that was printed. I'm not sure. But what I simply want to say to that is, while a lot of startups operate in the red without making money, they have to continuously raise in order to have money to continue the work, to continue to do the work that they do, and eventually get into the black and make money. I think it for us to speak without certain context about how business works and say that MakersPlace rugged or MakersPlace gave up, I think there's a high level of naivete and potentially even ignorance that comes with those statements, not really understanding, or at least not choosing maybe to include how business works into that statement. And it's a tough world out there right now with money. It's a hard place to fundraise. MakersPlace, along with many other platforms that have gone kaput, have not been generating much money. Collectors have not been buying, and so that's just a part of the process. That's business, and sometimes business doesn't go well. Do I believe in the digitization of art and in what's going on and how revolutionary this is? Absolutely, yes. But I also cannot be so naive so as to believe that MakersPlace quit or gave up. No, it just wasn't sustainable, people. Sustainability is a big word.
Well, I'm gonna challenge that because I completely agree with you. I think sustainability is definitely the larger conversation and definitely not an attack on MakersPlace because at the end of the day, it just didn't make sense to continue. But I do believe, I don't want to say the word quit in a negative way, in the sense of like, they just packed up shop, they decided to do something else. Like, I think you guys tried in every aspect, and obviously going beyond just the team, because the team was constantly, grinding. You guys were, I think many of you surprised by the announcement itself, but from the numbers game, I agree. I think it's the formula you mentioned, and I love the word formula. I think it just hasn't been figured out, and I don't think I have the answer either, but I really believe that marketplaces need some kind of ulterior, like alternate revenue stream in order to be sustainable, because art sales are just not it, especially like you mentioned, having a team of professionals, salaries, travel expenses. You guys had pop-up shops, you were at different art fairs, like all of these things cost money, and at the end of the day, the investor money should not be the only pool funding everything. So I don't want to say, I feel like you guys did, I don't want to say quit, but at the end of the day, I think it just was a strategic decision, because it didn't make sense to continue
Well,
operating.
right, right, and like, look, I'll add to this, right? I'll add this. It, it was definitely a strategic decision that I was not involved in. But the way I rationalize it, and I don't know how else to rationalize it, so help me if there's another way, or if this is not the correct way, is that if a company has X amount of dollars in the bank, and on a daily basis they're going, or let's say 1,000, and on a daily basis they're going negative 100, and they see that they can't exactly raise more money because they're not able to show how or why they're going to be able to generate money, given the context of the market dynamics at the moment, and also given proof in the pudding of what's happening in the marketplace itself. Then eventually, at some point in time, you either decide to go until that $1,000 you have in the bank goes to zero, or at some point you decide, well, look, it's probably going to go to zero. I'm probably going to cut my losses at maybe negative 600 and return at least some of the money that I was giving, which would be the prudent, reasonable thing to do for people's money that you borrowed? Or would you choose to just run it down to the ground to zero, having a fairly thorough understanding that that's probably what's going to happen? The third alternative is to go for a raise, and it's not quite exactly possible to go for a raise when you can't really show that the market's doing well, and that specifically your marketplace is generating enough sales to uh, encourage or support a raise. You see what I mean? So these are the things that have to be thought about from a monetary perspective. So you can, sure, I guess, not look at the nuance and say MakersPlace threw in the towel, but you can also analyze it from a business perspective, just like a case study, and see that, at some point you kind of have to make a reasonably prudent decision for others whose money you've borrowed to work with.
Absolutely. And in that position, that was the smart and right and respectful thing to do. I think, again, it just raises the larger question to our industry is, Hernán, I'm so sorry. I'm just going to ask you to mute real quick. I think the larger, again, conversation just is around the fact of like, we've been here for a few years and we're all building, and there are smart people involved in this space. But if we don't have anything sustainable or a proof of concept, like that to me is the most concerning part. And I want to share the mic around. I know, Hernán, while you were talking, a couple of hands shot up. So perhaps in response, but I'm glad you joined the stage, and these are definitely the types of larger conversations I want to be having. Papa Bearded, I saw your hand pop up. I don't know if you had a direct response to maybe something that was being said.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right pulling this thread here. And the question that I kind of have is like, it's obviously very sad to see an OG like MakersPlace go. They've been around, but where was the innovation? They didn't integrate L2s, correct? And they're existing in the market with Solana being a huge up and comer and other chains that are offering a lot of competition. And I think this kind of consolidation is totally natural in this cycle of business development. And if you're not innovating and offering something new, like Foundation making the pivot to do something like Rodeo, it raises the questions of like, well, geez, how can you do it? So I think it's healthy. I think it's healthy to see this sort of thing. And I just wonder, like, what's the things for artists that we have to secure for ourselves? I think the space that Jennifer mentioned yesterday with Brian and Atomic Form with their sort of atomic lore gives us a real opportunity as artists to like secure our own sort of legacy and make it a little decentralized and take some of that power back, I think, from the marketplaces that understandably need to charge a large percentage if they're going to do it. But if we're not, as artists, we're not seeing that return on our own investment of giving up of ourselves and our own creative capital, I don't know where you go from there.
I'm glad you mentioned Rodeo because I know the conversation has been had about their fees as well, which is significantly higher. I know MakersPlace typically had a 15% fee and Rodeo has a 25%, which at first had a bit of backlash, and they justified it by saying they needed it for operating costs, like to cover the cost and keep the platform open, with the intention of decreasing that fee as, time went on and hopefully more transactions and users came on board. But to be honest with you, I don't know how sustainable a platform like Rodeo is as well without taking those higher fees. And so again, my kind of concern comes back to how sustainable are those types of platforms. I know you mentioned obviously decentralized tools, which is a huge part of the conversation. And I think community's reactions as well with the importance of using other tools. I know Daniel from Transient Labs is here, and he's actually been waiting very patiently with his hand up. So maybe we swing the mic his way. Daniel, how are you? I don't know if you have anything you want to add. Hey, thanks for patiently waiting. GM.
Of course.
Go ahead, I'll give you the mic.
I have 10 minutes here, so that's perfect timing. Just want to say I appreciate the space and the dialogue that we're having. It's very open and honest. I obviously have many thoughts. For those not familiar, I do work at Transient Labs, lead marketing and artist relations. So I have a bit more insight, I think, into the inner workings, the business side, as Hernán mentioned. And really, I think MakersPlace was finally finding their footing again in 2024. So to me, this was a devastating blow to the space. I think they were crushing it on the curation, on the video content that they were producing. They were producing events. They were getting us as in digital art into Art Basel in Switzerland, I think, and they had something planned for Hong Kong Digital Art Fair. They were getting us into places where Transient doesn't do that. Manifold doesn't do that. Art marketplaces in general have not done that. And Transient and MakersPlace are very different, right? We're an open creator tooling platform. Similar to a Manifold, we are not a curated marketplace. And at this point, I think there's 2 curated marketplaces left. It would be Ninfa and SuperRare. Just correct me if I'm wrong, but I think those are the 2. And
Nifty Gateway, hypothetically, but they've been a little radio silent.
Right. If they do, from what I know, I think they're planning to do 1 drop every quarter. And that's obviously also not sustainable in my opinion. Maybe it works for them if they have a really small team and they just do high level productions. But, I think there's a clear need. I talk with a lot of creators, and there is a clear need for help. Creators, especially part-time creators, you can't juggle everything. You can't juggle creating and marketing and telling your story and building a website on top of a full-time job and a family. It's very difficult. And that's where those curated marketplaces could really shine. And again, I think you talk about the fees. Depending on the level of production, I think the fees should have been higher, right? For Transient, we have 0% creator fees right now for our mint pages, for example, and we charge collectors a protocol fee, which is 0.0009 ETH. Which that model, it's a volume-based model, and we don't play into we're not building our business around volume right now. We're building it around what artists want and what they say they want. But the problem is, in my opinion, this space has become very much of a herd mentality. We saw that with Rodeo. When Rodeo exploded, everyone went on there for a week, and now they're not. We just follow and chase metas. We follow and chase money wherever it is, whatever platform gives us sales. And I think that's the wrong mentality. Because that's constantly changing. You as a creator, I can't imagine how cumbersome it is to be learning a new platform every other week just to chase a sale. And I get that's the point, right? You want to sell your art. But is there a more sustainable way to do that? And I agree that no one in the space has figured out the formula for that. Transient hasn't figured it out yet. But we are doing, on top of the lab, which is our minting platform, we're building what I call actual creator tooling. So, last October, we released the dynamic art engine, V.1, V1, whatever you want to call it. And it was a no-code visual block-based programming tool where artists could go and create their own dynamic or interactive art, which to me is like the promise of blockchain. If we're just putting static JPEGs up on the blockchain, like that's overdone. We've been doing it for 4 years now, if not longer. And there's so much more potential with art and tech at the intersection. And like no one's unlocked that, right? We have smart contracts that do that. But what about making it super easy for creators to go drag and drop their art and prompt dynamic and interactive art, for example? Like that's kind of the direction we're going, where we have a separate thing that we are building that is meant for all creators, not just creators who are minting NFTs, people that just want to create cool things with their art. We're not necessarily forcing them to mint it as an NFT, but if they want to do that, we have the lab, right? And again, I think there is a need, even within transient, I think this year we'll find out, a need for kind of a curated side of the business, especially with MakersPlace going down. Artists need help. Artists need collector relations. I think, I don't want to say agents are needed, but like we're seeing what, Moments does and what, I'm blanking here on the names, but there's like 2 or 3. There's Madame Selkie, there's Hilda Broom, right? Who are all kind of working with artists to uplift them and get their art seen, and helping them navigate the space and all the tools that we have. Like, do I go to Manifold, Highlight, Ninfa? Like, where do I go? And I think that really comes down to what you're looking for. I think a lot of creators don't quite know. Like, is your goal to be an artist who releases an artwork once every couple months and has a big sale? Or do you want to have the most accessible art possible? Because your goals are very different at that point, and the platforms you're using and the way you go about marketing your art should be very different. I just ranted a bunch here, but I appreciate everyone listening.
Daniel, thank you so much for the time for joining. I'm glad we got to catch you before you had to jump, but I think you're very on point with a lot of what you said. And I'm glad you mentioned the artist management at the end as well. I think that was just going through all these tweets the last week or so. That was essentially the key, I think, reaction from many people. It was like, okay, well, we don't necessarily need marketplaces. We have our own creator tools, and Transient obviously contributing to a huge part of that. But the additional comments that were coming up were really like artist management services and kind of, we've had this conversation on previous episodes of the podcast, like the importance of needing a team and advising and how to best approach. And I think it's just, I guess, a pivot that's naturally kind of coming. But in my personal opinion, I think it's an ecosystem that needs everything. Like we do need the established marketplaces and kind of curated feeds. We need to be able to give artists the tools that they need to develop and continue create. And, the management services for those that are able to, at that level of their career, kind of afford those. I think it's all just going to continue to come together. So thank you for sharing your take. For those that don't follow Daniel, he's amazing. Please follow him and check out what Transient Labs is doing. I personally love the fact that Transient Labs was able to integrate into all the marketplaces. It wasn't just you have to use Transient Labs. You were able to move contracts into places like MakersPlace and all that. So it was, just a great tool that you guys are offering, and can't wait to see where you continue to build it, because I definitely think you guys as a platform really tune into the community and what the community wants. So very awesome to see. I do see a couple more hands up, so I want to make our way around the room. I'm going to give the mic next to the Food Master. Thank you for patiently waiting. How are you?
Good evening, good evening. Hi, Vasia. Hi, Milton. Yes, I think the most things I wanted to say are already said. And I want to add that I believe it's just the market, how it's going. I am in the art world from Web 2 from a lot of years, 20 years maybe before, and I saw a lot of things. I saw how things are changing, how platforms are closing and opening, and I believe that it's very sad what happened with MakersPlace, but it's a chapter. It's just a chapter in a larger narrative of the market refinement, because it's also about what was said before about sustainability, because it's maybe the model of this type of marketplace is not anymore sustainable. It was not only MakersPlace, but any kind of platforms we saw non-origin closed before, and I'm sure will be others. And I believe that in 2025, what is important and very sustainable is the power of community, all the community together, and other type of business model, like type of social, where all people come together, all people can show and sell their art, where artists are rewarded in a different manner, and they finally see something in in matter of rewards. And I think it's also what Milton said. I don't know if Milton said before about each of us starting to build our own websites and our own type of business. But this cannot be sustainable too if we do alone. We need a type of let's say collant. I don't know. I don't find the word. We need other platform who put together all these small parts, each of us. So this can be Rodeo or can be other platform type, Rodeo type. I don't know. I think Rodeo is perfect for put together all this type of ecosystem, because Rodeo is the first one who bring all the community together, and this never happened since 2021. So yeah, I think I said all I wanted to say. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Food Master. Yeah, you bring up something interesting in that I think the end goal of an artist, once they get established, is to have their own website and be completely independent and not have to worry about shutdowns, especially as we continue to dial in what the proper and sustainable model is. Having some kind of aggregate site would be really incredible, in my opinion, especially if there were some sort of trusted third party. I don't know if we like to use that in crypto or not, but I think at some point we have to build a bridge towards trust with a centralized entity. But if you had a trusted third party who could actually aggregate artists' websites and there was a checklist, it's almost like when I click my MetaMask, I have my Trust Wallet. Trust Wallet says, hey, or no, that is not a safe website to interact with. It would be nice to have some sort of aggregate. Now, what their business model is, how they get revenue, is probably for another conversation and probably for somebody smarter business minded than I. But that's one idea I could see potentially working in the future. And maybe that site is literally funded by ads. And I'm going to steal Vasia's idea here because she was talking about this previously before the show. But she mentioned, look, if it comes down to having ads, as much as we don't like ads, we might have to borrow some things from Web 2 in order to survive. So, you know, at the end of the day, if I saw an ad on my feed on Rodeo or on a website that aggregated these artist websites, well, you know, so be it. I can scroll past that. I don't have to click. I don't have to engage. I don't have to interact with those ads, but maybe that can bring a revenue source in where we don't have one currently that's funding the business enough to survive. So just a couple thoughts there.
I think Rodeo is the perfect one, accepting ads. Nobody supports ads. Nobody likes them. But I think Rodeo is the main thing now, and we have to, all the community have to concentrate, not. We have to interact with them in order to determine them to do what we need. And I think also a type of if they would establish a type of social, how you call it, a social reputation system, recognizing the reputation of each member in the space, and being able to guarantee somehow it's very hard, this I know, but to guarantee somehow that when we click on a link, we go safe and we cannot, we don't have problems building a reputation, a reputation system. This, it will be great if they would be able to do, and they can be the column. Yes, they can unite all the artists, all the collectors, everything in the space. It's maybe it's an utopia now, but I'm seeing it like this.
Yeah,
Hey, can
thank
I
you for
jump in for one more sec?
go for it. Go ahead.
I just wanted to do a challenge to my collectors out there. I'm a collector. Documenting the experience that you're having with the art is so key. And I just want everyone to realize the miracle time period that we've lived in where we can preserve so much of the experience we're having. So my question is, why do we buy this artwork? How does it speak to us in that moment? And then like for example, Dave Krugman just joined the stage. I've bought NFTs from him and then gotten the physical print, and I see them every day. And the experience that all of us are having, everyone in this audience, is so important to document because it's so interesting. And like, I do archaeology, we find seeds in burn pits and pieces of shells, and we're reconstructing that reality. Now with blockchain, you can preserve your experience with such longevity. So I challenge everyone, do that. Collectors, get involved with this art. You're sitting on these art, they call them bags, but what was that moment when you bought that art? And why did that speak to you? And how can you continue that relationship? Like Dave, I met also F. Dot, and I get merch from him, and I give gifts of his work. And so it's this continual enriching experience between the artist and collector. We need to tell that story because every house has art on the wall. And so it's everywhere. So if you're an artist that has already had collectors, reach out, continue that relationship. And I guarantee you that regardless of the funds they have, they're going to continue engaging with you in some capacity. Tell us that story. There's so much untapped potential there.
Can I jump?
Drew, yeah, 2 seconds, Jennifer. I'm sorry, I'll hand you the mic. But Drew, I love that you mentioned that because at the end of the day, I think it all comes down to the human relationships. And once you tap into the emotion, I mean, okay, not to make it sound like a very business proposition, but like that's at the end of the day what keeps people engaged. Like if you're sitting there watching someone's vlog on YouTube or whatever back in the day, it was because you care. There's that emotional connection. And I've actually heard artists and collectors both say it. It's similar to like scrolling through your phone camera and you're looking back at previous photos that were taken and the memories and emotions associated. And it's almost the same when you're doing that with your art collection as well. And there's definitely, I think, triggers that get brought up time and time again when you're looking back when you collected a certain piece and the memories that are kind of engaged in that. And Dave and F. Dot are great examples in terms of their relationship with collectors as well. And I admire both of them for it. So I love that you brought it up. Jennifer, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead. I'll hand you the mic next.
Oh, no, there's so many things I wanted to touch on. But I just think that that's good business practice as an artist. And there's many, many artists who do that actually. And immediately to my mind, I go to the drip community. The drip community doesn't necessarily have like physicals, but they're known to include that as part of their perk system. So like, for example, Luco, if you get onto his like top, I don't know, like 15 thankers, he's going to be sending you physicals and stickers and things of this nature. And then as far as centralizing something where you could do all kinds of things and also have an artist sort of website and also have a physical component to it where you could sell merch, there are people that are building already those things. And so a lot of my optimism doesn't actually come from not being a pragmatic person. It's because like I'm watching it happening live on the ground and having these conversations with builders, and am the founder of an artist collective of over 300 artists. So I'm daily interacting with people, and I do curate. I have created residencies. I'm actually now the owner of a digital art gallery that is in a high visibility venue in South Beach, Miami. And so a lot of these conversations about, do we include ads? How do we best elevate artists into different situations are things that I think about like literally 24/7. But just off the top of my head, OneHub, BuildTree. For example, BuildTree, when I did the demo that they walked me through it, you could basically create a lazy mint site, super easy. And you can pay right through their system for either cloud storing of your NFTs or IPFS. OneHub is literally making it so that you can have multi-chain migration of your previous contracts from other platforms into one central location. And you'll also have your artist profile there. You'll also be able to do podcasts from there. You'll be able to integrate your tiers and subscriptions to IRL events. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening. And I think seeing that is the thing that makes me not sort of dwell on what's going wrong. I think it's important for us to definitely take the moment and feel it. Losing MakersPlace is sad, for sure. I'm just of the mind that, like Milton mentioned, some things need to have constant innovation, or they're going to just go. And that's they played their role in that particular moment in time, and then other things come up. And I think that's exactly where we are. The dot-com boost saw this in the 90s. Amazon, funny enough, didn't even operate on a profit until like, I don't know, like 2021, like some abnormal amount of years that they were basically just reinvesting, and not actually making a profit as a company. And he was notorious for that and proudly would say that in interviews. You can look it up on ChatGPT. But yeah, Amazon was not actually like net positive as a company for many, many years. And so look, there's a lot of things out there. I did mention the pizza party thing. I pinned up to the top. If you swipe 1, 2, you're going to see a post that I did about Black Dove. Black Dove has it where you can license your art. Instead of it being an NFT, you can license your art, have it on their app, which is literally downloadable on any smart TV. Like 90% of smart TVs, you download the app. And if you're an artist on there, this is what I've done. I put the art up in my living room. There's a QR code on the side. I've had like 4 neighbors over, and I'm like, look, this is my art. Scan the QR code. When you scan the QR code, it literally triggers the phone to go to Apple Pay. And so I go, okay, well, this is $20. You're going to have license of this art for a year. All you got to do now that you own it, is you got to go back to your house, download the app on your TV, and it's going to be there and you're collected. And they basically just use it. And that's another way of doing it. And then if you swipe one more over, you're going to see me live onboarding the manager of the Gates Hotel in South Beach. So that's the displays that I own, that I'm a patron of. And it has AI, like the screens have AI prompting. And we're going to see that a lot. At the last conference at CES or something like that, they were rolling those out and showing it. But these displays that I own already have that capability. And you go on the app, you start doing the live prompting, and he's like, I'm going to make art with you. This is so cool. I'm like, yeah, just tell me what it is that you see in your head that you want to see. So I'm an AI artist. I prompted, and boom, it's on the screen. That's how you make an impact on people in real time. On a micro level, yes, marketplaces are important. Having curated marketplace is super important, but we all play a role in this whole thing, right? And that was my particular role in that moment, was to show him what this technology can do. And after he saw his art live prompted up on the screen, he was like, how do I get into this? Like, and right there, my friend was there and was like, oh, here you go. I'll help you. This is the app that you download. I think he got him onto Coinbase or something like that. And so I'm saying all this, and I hope it doesn't sound like a rant. I'm saying all this to say that there are actual solutions that are being built on a day-to-day basis by really brilliant people. And there are people like myself, and I know that Daniel mentioned Madam Selke and many other curators and people who are interfacing with artists, and Vasia, you're doing this with your agency, that are literally pouring their hearts into this. And when you do that, and you do that on a consistent daily basis, there is no way that you can actually fail. Like this great experiment that we have going on here, there is no fail when you're doing it that way. There's going to be iterations of it, and there's going to be an evolution of it. But because one marketplace that held a significant historical context in our space goes down, it doesn't mean the sky is falling. And so that's why I'm approaching it with this level of optimism, I guess. But it's from an actual place of information. And I like what I'm seeing. I think we're building the future still. And that's the position that I'm going to continue holding.
Jennifer, I like what you guys are doing, and I got to see the displays in Miami specifically, and I literally stopped. I do not get impressed after Crypt Gallery and everything I was able to do there. I don't get easily impressed by a lot of these digital displays, and I literally stopped and took a photo of what you guys had done in that hotel lobby, and I loved it. And I think absolutely the IRL is a huge component in terms of being able to create these meaningful connections, organic, meaningful connections with people not in our industry, and that's how we really red pill them and get them involved. And congratulations on all that you've been doing. And you also mentioned Black Dove. That's a great other proof of concept of how we can be really bringing in this art and digital art into the everyday. And it needs to be through these very seamless types of easy to plug in platforms. So I'm glad you used those as examples. And I highly recommend people follow along your journey in terms of what you continue building and the impact you continue to have on the space. I did have a question directly for you. And actually I want to ask the audience to please just respond in emojis, because I'm kind of curious. Do people think that marketplaces are necessary moving forward, or is there really no quote unquote need for them anymore?
I do think that it's nice to have like a centralized hub where things are easily connectable and verifiable. But I think at the end of the day, we are kind of supposed to have that. Like, you are supposed to do your due diligence and follow up with the people who are your collectors. And so I do like, for example, with One Hub and Remix, anytime that somebody collects from you, you have access to an email list, and then it's on you as an artist to do the follow up and to cultivate that connection. So I think that marketplaces are important. I just don't think that they're essential, I think, is the answer. So if you wanted to be an artist and not be involved in a marketplace and maybe buy, my display for a day for $500 and just stand in front of it and market your art to every person who walks through the door, and you execute and you can actually like sell your art that way and have a website, then you should do that. I just think it's not a one size fits all. I think both are important. I think artists should have autonomy and should be practicing their best business practices in order to continue growing and establishing themselves and having a happy collector base. But I also do see for sure the merit in having a centralized hub where it's easy for me to just discover new artists and things of that nature. I think there's space for both.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And you mentioned a couple of good alternatives and decentralized creator tools. If you mind just dropping those in the comments for those that maybe missed it, or people that are listening later on in case they want to reference, that would be awesome. I did see the main mariner pop a hand up while you were speaking, so I'm going to give him the mic.
Jesus, I don't even know where to start now. We just covered so much shit so quickly, and it's awesome. It's really good conversation. I've been trying not to interrupt people, so it's very hard for me to do because I'm impulsive as hell. But man, you guys are really covering it all here. But I'm gonna go back in the little minute time back machine and comment on the last one about the art journey, the story. My favorite description, it being sort of a treasure hunt. Mr. Archaeologist, Dr. Jones, Indiana Jones. You struck a nerve there. I love it. But yeah, I mean, that's what it's about, is finding these items in time. And believe me, I am a collector and a protector. I often say that line, but I truly believe it. And I bought these things that I considered treasures because I was like, wow, this place is unique. This is so early. This is the future. There's no doubt about it. But it still doesn't mean that you feel this twinge and pain when you find the things that we're building and so important, which I mentioned earlier, the credibility, and we've beat to death on this, the credibility, the ease of access, and getting other people involved. There are challenges in my mind that I can't help but, if I don't know it, I know, and I'm an idiot, I know damn well, as long as I've been doing this, I'm still stupid as hell. I think about how much dumber everyone else is who hasn't even gotten to that level yet. I'm like, Jesus Christ. I mean, so I'm like a great gauge of dumbassery. So I love what I do. I love the art world. I have bought a fortune again in this shit, and I love it. I bought it because I knew it was cool and treasure hunting. I'm a nerd like that. But what does it mean when like these credible places go down, and I have stuff from like, I don't know, Known Origin, OpenSea, and, keeping it to today's topic, MakersPlace, soon to be not MakersPlace. No offense, Hernán. But, you call it what it is. I mean, they're backing out, and now it's not there anymore. So it's like, okay, that art you bought off, yeah, you can bring it to your private wallet. How do you, explain to normal people that you bought the digital code off some specific artist at this point where the website that sold it to you no longer exists? Yeah, it's stored uniquely on my wallet, whatever. So how do we trace it back to that? Are there tools for that? Are there websites for that? Is there marketability for that, Jenny? I see your hand going up in that 100%. But yeah, I mean, those marketplaces need to exist for this future to exist, guys. Like no one, I mean, we can all trade here as a bunch of little crypto nerds and be like, ugh, here you go. See, you can verify the contract. Ugh. But I mean, we would know that. How the hell does the broader market know that? Well, to get the $30 million people back into this shit, they need to know how to do that. And they need to get that liquidity, and they need a bunch of assholes to join the party, not just us having a big old art circle jerk like we have with rodeo.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. Vasia,
No,
can I reply?
I guess yeah, go ahead, reply. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I feel you on that one. Like, we are not going to sit here and follow contract addresses and read through. Like, I'm a historian, I love research, but no one's actually going to sit and do that. And there are stuff. So, Atomic Form, I worked with them back in 2024, April. They have a really cool system, not only for preserving like the actual tokens and data just in general, but also somebody mentioned, like the story. And Transient actually has this too with their story inscriptions. But like, if I collected a piece off of somebody and I made a tweet about it, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. I bought this NFT. I love this artwork. And I also just received in the mail like this physical painting, made my day, right? Like, you can take that tweet and actually attach that to the metadata of that particular NFT. And so you're preserving literally that art and the provenance and history that goes along with that art. So, like, that I love. And then Brian Brinkman did a really great breakdown of other ways that we as artists can be preserving, artists and collectors, excuse me, that information, like, so that you don't feel like if a marketplace were to close, then all of a sudden, like, you go and the image is somehow lost or something like that. Like, there's a ton of solutions that are being built out, but in particular, the ones that he recommended, and I would definitely check out Atomic Form, Atomic Lore for that.
So how do we get, but again, like, so, okay, Atomic Awesomeness, great. So that's a marketplace, it's a tracking system. Again, it's about like, how do we convince people? And remember, people are fucking stupid. And this is like next level shit. You got to go crypto, then you have to love art, and you have to believe that this somehow is a way to store art as a treasure and Indiana Jones's shit in the future. And it's awesome, and that it's secure, and that it's credible, and all these goddamn things we've covered. How do you make people feel warm and fuzzy without a marketplace? You must have a marketplace. It must exist. And we just lost a very critical marketplace, which is the whole topic of this shit.
Well,
So,
okay, let me push back on one thing. If Sotheby's disappeared tomorrow, what does that mean for art on the whole? Like trad art on the whole? Like, if they just happen to disappear?
all right, I'm on a speakerphone, so I'm going to silence. Yep, the ear's silence. Okay, good. It doesn't mean shit because the marketplace is somewhat old school and it's been established. And you could have an artist sell it on the street. You could have an artist sell it at a local gallery, a different gallery. Yeah, they'd lose their marketability and all the other things that we've covered and all the beauty things that come from a gallery where the artist doesn't have to deal with it. The artist focuses on just creating art. They consider it part of the process, part of doing business. Sorry, you don't get 100% of the profit. Other people have to do other shit. If Sotheby's went down, no biggie diggy. In this case, in a budding industry which is not established, traditional art, it's hard to compare the two. It's like comparing apples and goddamn onions. So I just don't know how to answer that really realistically. Other than this, we need to have websites that are established, OG, and guess what? This dangerous word that everybody loves, fucking trusted. You need to feel warm and fuzzy, and you just lost one. And now you're telling me it costs $30 goddamn million to build one? Are you fucking kidding me? I thought it was far less than that. I was literally considering talking to people to see if we could buy that damn thing. That's a lot of money. I believe
It is.
I
It is.
believe
But
in this. So that's why, I mean,
I know, and I get the passion. I totally do. But I'm just saying, like, what happens if NFT NYC becomes a de facto marketplace with their one hub? And then they go and they have some kind of system in place that winds up verifying all of the artists that are there. And they have literally been onboarding people one by one to the one hub, and just started with, I guess, by funneling the people who are doing the applications for the NFT NYC showcase and building them their one hubs. Like, what if they actually accomplish it and they manage to have a central place with a bunch of artists that are verified, multi-chain, and they have a reputable name? Wouldn't that be a good solution?
it would be, but like hurting artists is like hurting a fucking, I don't know, a bunch of cats. So like getting them all to do one thing is one, another. So I want something even simpler. I want to give me something cooler. I want something decentralized that says, hey, motherfuckers, the Main Mariner owns a bunch of this cool ass art, and I do, from so many cool people. But now all this shit's melting down like a goddamn volcano you can't even imagine. So it's like, oh man, do I literally just have, like, I don't even know. I never thought of this scenario. I thought we were gonna kind of go up and up here. But how could I make sure that I can literally be like, see, this is the picture, this is the history, this is where I bought it. With MakersPlace going down, I'm like, shit, that doesn't really have the history. And I'm not looking to sell. I've only sold one NFT ever. That's it. And I own thousands, so I'm not too worried about that. Yeah, it's just, I'm sorry, were you saying something?
Yeah, I just kind of thought of something, which is, what if on the UI of a website, and I'm just saying, like, what if an NFT NYC One Hub builds something where they have like a notable collectors tab, and in that area we could go to your page as a collector and see the things that you hold dear to you, and then maybe in somehow bring in the elements of the things that Atomic Form and Transient Story Inscriptions are building, where you can actually see the history of that artwork. Main Mariner collected this from MakersPlace on such and such date. He interacted with the artist on Twitter, and they had this discussion related to this art purchase on such and such date. What if that was possible, and is very possible actually, and that got put into the UI of one centralized marketplace? Then that would be a solution, no?
No, that's fine. I can come up with problems and give you solutions all day long. I'm just literally telling you exactly that. There is a problem here, a major fucking problem, which has to do with this market melting down. One of the greatest things that kind of gave you a little more fuzzy feeling did go away. I mean, we could definitely put all this shit, this data on something, send it up to the moon, for Christ's sakes. We already proved that, and leave it there. Cool. Nobody can touch it. It's safe. It's secure. But the problem is, like, I literally, with all humility, and I'm wondering, like, MakersPlace is dying. Let's keep it to topic. Unfortunately, hopefully somebody comes in. I don't foresee it, because people are going to put their money elsewhere for now. Maybe it'll come in a few years and it'll come back from the dead. But it's like, that history, is that somewhere? I know the transaction history exists. You can trace all that stuff, but it's like the storyline. You mentioned a very key thing. Story. Is the story there? Does it have a little icon pictures, the colorful show? I mean, not normal humans like to look, they don't like to look at a bunch of goddamn gibberish on the ether chain and be like, oh, I understand what's going on here. Who fucking cares? Now, today, I felt more confident when I bought Hafka's piece, because he's minting that to Bitcoin, and all the information's there. It's all stamped in that fucking blockchain forever. It's like, there's no argument there. You just stamped it into a Satoshi, like I pay a dollar bill with a specific serial number. I've got Hafka art. I mean, there's no argument there. I don't care what the story is. But with these other ones that come off, let's say Transient or Manifold or God knows what, without that verified stuff, man, I am telling you, and all the crap I've bought, even when I talk to like great artists who've made the millions, the superstars here, I still I am very cautious with links, and I'm very cautious about going to a rodeo, so to speak. Like, I don't just jump into this shit. I'm cautious. I can't imagine what a future would hold without more decentralized awesomeness. Man, I could ramble about this all day, but I'm going to shut up because we have talked about a lot, but there's a lot here, guys.
Well, I saw Dave's hand shoot up while you guys were talking. So, Dave, if you have anything to jump in and add, please go ahead.
Hey, thank you so much. Yeah, no, it's a great conversation. I don't want to like retread too much old ground, but I do want to bring up a point, and if it was covered before I joined, then by all means, somebody stop me. But something that I've been thinking about a lot with the closure of MakersPlace, and I really love MakersPlace and worked with them a lot via All Ships and other things, and loved what they're doing for community building. And I do think there is a place for platform in this space, but I just want to kind of bring up the fact that when we talk about trust, right? Like this idea of trust, like how do we trust an artist? How do we trust that that work is what they say it is, or that they have a history, or that they're in it to stay? I mean, that trust is all based around consensus, and consensus is created on social media. Really, it's not really a platform thing. Like you can get a cosign from Christie's, or you can get a cosign from a Super Rare or a Maker's Place, and I'm sure that wins some points in your reputational landscape. But the real thing that I think artists should be focusing on in every stage of their career is their ability to communicate on their own platform. I think one of Manifold's tenets is that the artist is the platform. So if all the crypto art platforms go away and artists are just deploying their own smart contracts and pinning their own work to these decentralized image servers, like that's not the death of crypto art. That's the death of marketplaces. But this community, I have a lot of faith in, will survive a lot of these different tsunamis and changes and stuff like that. This reminds me a lot of when I got into social media and I got into Instagram pretty early on. And basically what Instagram did for artists is it really replaced the publishing industry. So it turned every artist into a publisher. And we just changed the wording around that. We call big publishers influencers or something like that, but it's really just the same exact mechanics. And in the early days, a lot of major magazines ignored that sea change coming, that what was happening was the artist was becoming the platform. And I think we're living through that moment again right now. We went through a decade of social media where the world normalized the fact that the artists that would be successful were the artists that could build their own, quote unquote, independent reach. Web3 is built on top of that substrate. We're all here on X talking about it, right? Like we only know each other because of this social layer that we're all building together in this like social consensus mechanic. And that to me is the like lifeblood of the crypto art space. And so I really just want to emphasize, like, there's really very little a platform is going to do for you if you're not doing most of the work yourself. Like we take on by decentralizing marketplaces and decentralizing sales and decentralizing information and decentralizing currency itself. What that means is like that stuff doesn't go away. It just falls on your shoulders. And so a lot of artists resisted social media because they're like, my job is to make art. My job is not to be a publisher. I don't want to be writing copy and engaging with a wider community. Like, I just want to make my art. I want my agent or my team to take care of that stuff. But the artists that were able to ride that wave of social media into major careers and success were the ones that were like, no, I'm willing to take on a little bit more of that burden if it means that I'm in control and I'm a little more sovereign. And so I just want to emphasize that like nothing about that equation has really changed. And I love to see all the experiments that platforms have undertaken. And I think what Rodeo is doing is really interesting. But I really look at Rodeo as more of that social media layer. I don't really look at Rodeo like much of a marketplace. I think it's a network tool in order for you to expand your community. And I think the future of this space is a combination of really intelligent and robust use of distribution networks, aka social media, and that combining that with like artist forward technologies like transient labs and manifold. I mean, I have been really lucky in this space, and both with timing and with opportunity, and also having the experience of a decade working in social media and advertising before all of this came around. And
I can tell you very, very easily without even doing any math that all of my biggest successes came from working with uh, creator tools and social networks, even Web2 social networks, and just straight up human social networks and group chats, and building teams of people and trying to make connections, and then using the tools to mint my work on chain. But the real distribution and sales part of that was 100% social media stuff. It wasn't platforms intervening and being like, oh, I'm on their mailing list now, so now I'm going to find collectors. It's like almost sometimes it's like door to door. This project that just came out, Cycles, which I like had an opportunity to mint and dropped the ball because I didn't see my DMs in time. But I really admired the way they went about this. They were kind of, they had this whole presentation about it, a whole website, and they were just tweeting saying, hey, if you want to hear more about this project and you want to mint one, just reach out. And a ton of people reached out to them. They all got a mint. And it's that like really careful use of your social ability to drum up attention around your project that makes all the difference in the world. Um, I did a project called Drip Drop with Transient Labs in the first year of Transient Labs, and we sold 1,000 NFTs. And myself and a couple friends, Redbeard was one of them, one of my collectors and dear friends. We went to Consensus and we're like handing out postcards that had the QR code on it so you could go see more information about the project. I DM'd hundreds and hundreds of people asking if they wanted to be added to the list. And that's the work that like ideally a marketplace or platform would take on for you so that you can focus on your craft more and to do less of the distribution and sales work. But I just really don't think that's the reality we live in. And if you look at the artists who are making sales in today's marketplace, they're social sculptors. They're really good at chipping away at this giant block of marble that is the internet and saying, this is how you can find me. This is my story. And a lot of that stuff is happening outside of the platform ecosystem. And a lot of the platform ecosystem has been propped up by massive, massive multi-million dollar investments that, are all taking losses right now. So I just, I've ranted for too long now, but my point is like, if you really want to make an impact with your art and have your art reach people, like it's about using the substrate of Web 2 to build a impossible to deny sense of trust and credibility in the world of Web 3. And that's just my 2 cents.
Hey,
How do you
Dave, thanks for that.
standard verification? Oops, I trust here. But
Man,
like, how
Mariner,
do you
you're dropping out
verify?
just a little bit.
Go ahead. You're
Sorry, can
just
you hear me
breaking up a
now?
little bit. So try again. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. So the like the you covered so much there, and it's awesome stuff. Again, with my own humility and like, sure, it's great. Artists build their reputations in Web 2, cool. I feel like I know that there needs to be some sort of, whether it be, there's always going to have to be third party, unless there's some magical decentralized way to verify like who the hell a human is, who X copy is or whatever, like verify that it's legit and what they produce is legit and you can transfer that token legitimately. It's going to be really hard again to make this market work. It's just too goddamn difficult. And if we did have something like that, some sort of verification thing that made sense, and despite it being you being on the ground, building your own reputation, I feel like there unfortunately needs to be a decentralized thing that has like a reputation thing, art rep, whatever. It was mentioned way earlier, like some sort of like points thing or whatever, but credibility. When I first got into this game and having some fun, it was a lot of work on OpenSea. And one of the things that I would do, it was crazy. It was Wild West. You all know that. You're like, I don't even know if this is a real fucking human I'm buying this shit from, but they seem legit. I've heard them talk. They're pretty funny. I like their art. I connect with this. Maybe we're on the same page. And a lot of people, some might be in this room right now, they're actually legit and they stayed through it. But what I was going through, one of my maybe it's dumb as shit, but it was the only way I knew how to do it. I was like, I could verify, they were verified on OpenSea. I'm like, well, first thing with a red flag, if you weren't verified on OpenSea, I was like, fuck that. I mean, you're not even verified there. I mean, I'm going to use a condom. I'm looking for verification. So like, and then there's the some that you just bought and you're like, I should have worn a condom. So that's the point, is people are looking for that protection, so to speak. And, I don't know, man. Where does it exist? That's with all humility.
Yeah.
I'm just
So
bringing up
no,
stupid shit.
I have a response to that.
I'm gonna silence my thing or it'll be an echo. One sec. I'm in a car.
Look, so that's one way to collect, is to just go look at art on OpenSea and see what you vibe with, and I think that's totally fine and appropriate. But you're acknowledging the risk because you're not verifying, who is putting out that work. Like if you go buy if you see a picture on OpenSea that's one of mine and you like it and you're buying from a fake collection, like there's nothing either one of us can do about that, except checking with me, the source, right? So like you're like, oh, how do you find out if it's an X copy? Like, well, I go to X copy's profile and I make sure that this is a real X copy project, right?
All right, so that's on the artist. We put it on the artist's reputation. There isn't like a third-party thing that we all know about, decentralized even, preferably, where it says X, he created a profile, it's his contract, we know it's his shit, verified through this goddamn nerdy. It can be done, and it needs to be a decentralized thing that says, okay, this.
It's actually like the social media is the decentralized thing. Like social media, we're speaking on centralized platforms, and I think we're on a steady march towards decentralization. But the consensus network of the fact that, oh, I look at Xcopy's profile and I see that 2,000 of my mutuals are following him, that's enough verification. And that's individual verification of everybody else who's verifying against each other. So that actually is the most trustworthy way to identify. So like I don't click links in emails. I will, if Super Rare emails me and says I got a bid, I will go to the Super Rare. I'd rather go to the Super Rare Twitter and click on the website that way, because there's an extra layer of protection there, presumably, because there's so many other people verifying that this is the correct link and information. So like the actual strength of social media and of Web3 is that like we are all individual nodes in a network, and we're all independently verifying the closest thing to the truth, which is that, oh, if 500 people follow Kath Samard, I know that's the real Kath Samard and not some complex AI bot that's like mimicked her profile perfectly. So like that's actually a strength. And I don't necessarily think we need a dedicated, like, again, decentralized, centralized verification program. I think we already have that, and it's our social fabric that we're operating in. And the strength of that network is actually the fact that there's nobody in control of it. It's an emergent property of interconnected networks online. And that's really like important, I think, in this equation.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Dave, that brings up that there is social consensus verification, and we can actively participate that and look for mutual connections and go to the source when it comes time for minting. We make sure to go to that verified source when we're clicking links. I like your analogy of going through OpenSea, which is very true. If you're going through OpenSea, you don't know if exactly what you're buying is verified or not. You use protection in that case, but I think Dave brings up a good point that we actually have access to the tools today to do that social verification on our own. I know that I saw a couple hands in response to that conversation between Main Mariner and Dave. Catalina is one that shot up first, I believe. And I don't think we've heard from Catalina, so I wanted to give her the mic first before Ginny's hand went up, and we'll get to Ginny next. But Catalina, if you had a response to that, I'd love to hear it as well.
GM, everyone, thank you so much for letting me on the stage. It's a wonderful conversation. I wanted to ask Vasia and you how long the space is going to go, because I do have a couple of things about the whole conversation, and I can go last if that's okay. I want to be respectful of your time, and I don't want to take too long, but I also want to share a little bit of my story, because I'm coming from one of the first artist on MakersPlace back in 2018. So it's been a journey since then. So let me know if you guys have how much time do you have until the end of the space, and how much time do I have?
Catalina, we got plenty of time. Vasia is having a little trouble hearing some of our speakers, including yourself, unfortunately, but I'm here with you, and we've got plenty of time. So yeah, sometimes these spaces go as long as 4 hours. We're only 2 hours in, so we're potentially only halfway. No, but go ahead. We'd love to hear your take, especially considering you're one of the first MakersPlace artists. Jump in.
Oh, thank you. Because I thought it's going to be only 2 hours, and I'm like, okay, I can wait until the end, and I can just leave the space. It's okay. But I do have kind of like two approaches about this whole situation that's happening. One of it is the research standpoint, and the other one is the emotional standpoint. And I agree with everyone. And the conversation was so impactful so far because I'm actually taking notes because it's for me, it's very beautiful to see the standpoint from not only the artists themselves, but the collectors and the builders. Because I was thinking first that the artists and the marketplaces are two sides of one coin, but now I feel like this is the holy trio, like the artists, the collectors, and the builders of the marketplaces. Because I truly believe that Jennifer said it very, very beautifully earlier. We kind of need both. I'm coming from a designer background, research background, and I know shit about promoting, and how to promote your art, how to like share your story on the outside on social media. So I have no experience that Dave has. And for me, these marketplaces were actually very helpful and useful because they were giving me the tools that I need in order for me to promote my art and tell my story the way to reach a broader audience. Because for many of us, it's actually very difficult to create your art and share your story and reach the audience that will appreciate it. Because Maine said it very beautifully earlier. It's all about the trust. And I've had collectors who were chatting with me for months and months and months before they finally decided that they're going to make the sale. Why? Probably it was an emotional decision, but at the same time, they did it because they built this trust, which is later very easy to break, but at the same time, it takes very long time to build and to consolidate. What I realized since 2018 is the fact that in the very beginning, we had a very few marketplaces, big ones, extremely big ones. MakersPlace was one of them. It's like I felt it's like those were the pillars of the crypto community, or at least the art side of the community. And one of them is actually breaking. The other one broke last year, and this one I believe MakersPlace is way bigger than Known Origin. And breaking it down for me, it leaves me with a bit of distrust. What's going to happen? What I see here is, obviously, everything changes. We're moving through different cycles, and the cycle for MakersPlace is over, which means that there are new cycles for other marketplaces to rise. What I realize right now is that the whole space is fragmented, and that bothers me. We have so many different platforms popping up here and there, and on one side, each of them is solving specific problem. If you want to build a community, you can go to Rodeo. If you want to have a passive income, you can go to Salvor. If you want to build this, you can go there. If you want to share stories, you can go to Remex. There's so many different marketplaces, which and they fragmented the whole space. They fragmented the community, and they fragmented all of the artists. They broke down into smaller communities, smaller and smaller. The collectors are smaller as a community, as groups. And this, for me, bothers me. This is on one side. On the other side, I believe now the artists should focus on what they truly want to do. They should have their own... I should say they should think of themselves as a brand, and how to bring that brand to actual maybe success, but what they really truly want to do, what they really truly want to achieve. Because this fragmentation may be good if you want to achieve a specific goal within your art journey or your creative journey. You can choose whatever tools you want. We have a wide variety of those tools, but now it all depends on us what we truly really want to do. Another thing that I wanted to mention is the emotional standpoint. I don't remember who mentioned at the very beginning of the conversation, but I started on MakersPlace back in 2018. I was among the first art community that was invited on the platform to actually test out the UI, test the web, the browser. We were discussing the logo design. We were discussing the features. We were discussing pretty much everything that was on the website. We were discussing how the profile should look like, how we can mint our profiles and update our profiles, how to mint the pieces. And what's more importantly, they gave us MetaMask wallet. They said, we will help you as much as we can, because we know that, they know that we know shit about crypto. Like back in 2018, no idea what am I dealing with. But what I really truly wanted to explore was the fact that there was this signature, what is this? Like a fingerprint, which was proof of authenticity. For the first time in my digital artistic journey, I knew that my digital art will have a stamp of approval, that no matter if it's an edition or a one-on-one, I know this have a signature and it has unique code. It's going to be on the blockchain, and I can set it, and I can even take royalties from it. So that was a novelty at the time. So they hold our hands pretty much at the very beginning, and they helped us through this journey. I remember Anne-Marie was the one who onboarded me, and she was very supportive. She was helping me. She was even showcasing my work on their events, I think it was 2019 or 2020, something like that. It was a very long time ago nowadays when I think about it. What I believe is that we should have both ways. Nowadays, the problem that arises right now with the marketplace going down, I still have artworks on those wallets, and I'm going to need to find a way how to transfer them to my own wallet, because nowadays I'm minting on other marketplaces, or I'm using Manifold, which to me or Transient Lab, because to me this is the way to go. Once as artists we establish our career or our artistic journey in a way that we want to achieve something more, and we can get that independence that we need. But at the very beginning, it's very difficult. We know shit about how things are working. I'm still learning myself. And since 2018, because things are changing so much, I have still no idea what I'm doing, because things are evolving every single day, and it's such a fast-paced space. So what I'm saying is, for a new artist who are coming to the space, they're gonna need simple things. They're gonna need something that they can be introduced. They're gonna need something that can hold their hands and tell them how they can approach and start at the very beginning, build the career or build the skills, they build the experience. Because I have friends who just last year they tried to join, and immediately they got scammed, and they left because they got disappointed. They couldn't even build the skill and experience, yet alone the trust, and find their collectors. They fell for a scam because they didn't know better, because there was no marketplace that can help them at the very, very beginning. It's very scary. It's still scary for us, but for new artists, it's even scarier, because they have no idea what they're coming. And they have no idea what they're dealing, because they have dreams and passion. And when we started, we didn't know, but we came here with dreams. And thanks to MakersPlace, I was able to achieve a lot of those dreams. And the reason why I'm still here is thanks to MakersPlace. This is the emotional side. This is the trustworthy side, and part of me that it will probably never go away, even though I know that when people are looking from the business standpoint, yes, if it's not sustainable enough, it's going to be very difficult for any marketplace to survive. MakersPlace at least survived for 6 years. Other marketplaces did not go very well. So at least, yeah, kudos to that. But at the same time, for me, it's always going to be very emotional to talk about them, because I hold them with such regards and I hold them with such respect. And I truly believe that we're going to need to find somewhere in the middle, like a middle ground. And if we have the chance to have a discussion with both, just like today, this is why I'm so grateful that you allowed me to get on the stage and to be part of this conversation. This is the building block from here on. Sitting down and consulting and sharing ideas between the artists, collectors, and builders, because I think we together and only together is the way to go forward. So yeah, thank you for welcome to my TED Talk. And thank you so much for letting me speak.
Hey, thanks, Catalina. No, I think emotionally, a lot of people are reeling, and I know that there are complications when it comes time to A, get involved as a new artist, B, if you're an established artist with these platforms, how to take possession of your artwork and make sure that it's not lost with the platform. So these are great points to bring up. I think we've talked to some people on stage today that have championed a few different companies in our space, like Transient Labs, like Manifold, some of the creator tooling, and I think we've got a really good community. People have touched on that as well, that are willing to help onboard people and to educate people with asking really nothing in return. So I think if you're bringing new people into this space, it's super important to direct them to the right people that can help onboard them. Maybe that's you. Maybe that's sending them to somebody that's got more experience than you at one of these platforms, like Daniel we talked to at Transient Labs today, for example, I know is great at bringing people in and making sure the artists get what they're looking for, especially if it's their first experience. We've got somebody else on the stage who may be able to speak to this, because Rick Manelius is here, I think, speaking with us from the first time. I see that Rick worked as a CEO at Atomic Form. So I'd love to hear what Atomic Form is thoughts on this, kind of what this middle ground is. What does it look like to be sustainable in the future? How do we make sure that new people that are coming into the space have some sort of record, no matter where these pieces are minted, of what the provenance is, what the history of it is, even if these marketplaces disappear. So I know you've got some tech at Atomic Form that a lot of people have been talking about today, the lore. So maybe you can speak to some of that, Rick.
First off, thank you. It's an honor to be here. Catalina, I literally have my hand standing up on my arm. I've been diligently taking notes on a mind map, and I have like 20 threads I can follow with you, and I almost feel overwhelmed because you've spoken to. I don't even want to make this about Atomic Form, to be honest. I mean, the value prop, these are a lot of things that we're trying to solve. We've been working very diligently trying to solve this, but like mission and philosophically wise, like I could not be more aligned than what you've said on so many different fronts. So I'm going to take people on kind of a journey, and please interrupt me, hosts, if I go too far off the rails here. I hope to answer as many questions or as many concerns, but I'm going to popcorn style over a lot of these, and I'll do my best to weave a tapestry and try to bring it home. Yeah, we're going to pull a recording of this, and I'm going to have lots of content fodder from this conversation. So I'm very excited to be here. I want to talk about a tactical thing first, and then I'll get back to sort of high level 30,000 feet. Like, I'm sorry that, like in the beginning, right? I think a lot of people minted on these minting platforms, whether it's OpenSea, Nifty, et cetera, and there's this sort of lack of sovereignty of artists, right? They minted on a place, they don't own the contract. Their NFTs are intermingled with thousands, if not tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of artists and creators, right? And that can be very unnerving. And there's like this, well, how do I reclaim this? I did have an interesting conversation with like the CIO of Christie's, and while I can't, this is not legal advice. The very nature is like artists define their collections, artists assert their collections. And so like when we were doing work with Atomic Form is a lot about assertions, or what we call attestations, cryptographic attestations. You as an artist, like whether you're Dave Krugman, whether you're Brian Brinkman, whether anyone who's worked on any of the previous platforms, if you, the artist, own the rights to your work and say, this contract from this token ID to this token ID is my stuff, and I make that assertion, it's yours, right? You've created it, you've uploaded it, whether it's on someone else's contract or not. The challenge is that's very tricky from an outside observer without the marketplace. It's very, gosh, again, I'm going to get down so many rabbit holes here. I'm going to try to keep it understandable. Like we have this schism right now between like on-chain data, right? Anyone that's ever owned a Dave Krugman, right, can verify that, right? Because there's an on-chain record. There's histories of where things have transferred in and out. And there's a beautiful social graph of everything he's ever produced, and everyone has ever owned that, right? And that's created this network of his on-chain experience. And then we have marketplaces, which are generally Web 2 applications that have normal databases that could be blown or deleted and changed, et cetera, that contain all these stories, the lore, the history, the context, the descriptions, all this stuff. And there's a break in that. And so like when Foundation decides to become Rodeo, and when Known Origin deprecates, and when all these things happen, like there's this tremendous loss of that information. Now, you can still make those assertions. And so what we're trying to do is make it very possible for artists to make claims. And so if you mint it on 20 platforms with 20 different wallets, right, that becomes very fragmented for other apps, dApps, and marketplaces, or customers, or new people to say, like, where was Catalina? What is the total body of work? What's her catalog raisonné? What's her CV, her on-chain CV? And one of the inspirations between or for our on-chain collections feature was to finally make that possible, because in my opinion, it was an oversight of NFTs to not sort of consider on-chain or collections to be an on-chain first-class object. The collection data largely exists in the marketplaces, which means it's breakable. We know that like 90% of all Web 2 links like break over 10 years. We know like platforms like, whether it's Instant Messenger back in the 90s, early aughts, to MySpace, and eventually Twitter will break. We now use 95% of all Twitter discourses on Twitter, right? And like eventually all this information, if we look at the 1 decade or 2 decade time horizon, all this information is going to go away. And so I've been through multiple iterations of the web churning large volumes of information. I've lost whole websites, I've lost history. The Wayback Machine is not sufficient to capture the volume of content, stories, and history that this space creates. And so it's our mission to figure out tools and solutions that allow this off-chain context, what we call lore, histories, stories, context, memories, to be permanently on-chain, and therefore, and also permanently associated with the very NFTs, collections, and artists, such that we don't recreate this MakersPlace problem again and again and again. And we can't hold blame to marketplaces. We can't hold blame to startups and businesses that have to experiment, that have to deal with the economics of running a business, that are in a Cambrian explosion of experimentation, that are trying all these new things, that are trying to be innovative, that are trying to keep in this attention economy. Like every marketplace that exists now will eventually die or transform, period, end of story. Atomic Form, I have to build the technology and the platform such that, this is what I tell my team this all the time. I want it such that the data in our system will exist after we die. Whether we're acquired, whether we IPO, whether we fail, no matter what the outcome is of Atomic 10 years from now, the data and the associations must exist beyond us, period, end of story. And I don't think enough people are sort of thinking with that mindset, because not many people have been through a churn of the web where they've seen whole platforms go away. They've had whole places, their identity added into, look, TikTok went down for 45 minutes of the weekend. Haha, it came back, but it could have not. It could have been gone permanently. And any artist that used that as their primary place of storytelling, sharing, their whole social graph, all of their content, their user followers, everything they've ever produced, if it only existed on that, it was gone forever. If 2 politicians decided that, or some sort of war between oligarchs happened, and all of a sudden you are the collateral damage and everything you've ever done is gone. That will happen. It will continue to happen. And so we need to figure out, Catalina talked to, again, I'm going back to some trails here, like how do we bring new people in? How do we make this easy? I think there's so much to learn from previous versions of the web. Like I've, at Atomic Form, when I joined 3-ish years ago, we wrote an article, I posted it in a thread against this Twitter space, or X space, which was, we need a schema.org for Web3. And for people that were eyes glazed over, this is what it means. We need to make best practices easy out of the damn box. We don't want to have artists stress over IPFS or Arweave. Like, how can I just abstract that? I think Manifold's done a good job of that. We still don't have proper IP rights in the damn contract creation process. We still don't have Flickr solved this back in 2005. When you upload a damn image, it says all rights reserved, public domain, or everything in the middle. It was a drop down. It was trivial. And it literally isn't metadata. We could make this a standard field on OpenSea on any damn contract ever. We could already be doing this today moving forward, and we don't do it, right? So like we're just not learning from history at this point. Story Protocol, I think, is going to solve this kind of in a sort of third-party way, and I think that that's great. But to solve some of these problems, which will absolutely happen, they continue to happen, whether it's punks getting rugged because, you know, is the project CCO, is all rights reserved, can I brand around this? Or artist rights, you know, can people use this for non-commercial purposes, all this stuff. We just want artists to art. We want artists to be able to build their community, build their creativity, and we don't want them to be stressing about their smart contracts. We don't want them to be stressing about which minting platform they're on. Ideally, we're old enough as an industry now. It's only been like 4-ish years, right, I think, between the explosion of 2021. But like, we need to consolidate around best practices, which are there. They are available. These are not. Some of them are hard. Some of them are not hard. And some of them just needs to start getting baked into the beginner tool sets, so that way beginners can just feel smart and accomplished and just do what they do best without hitting these guardrails and feeling rugged. I feel very bad for a lot of people in this community right now with known origin MakersPlace going away. There's this fear, there's panic, and that's a problem. However, I don't think this is to be solved by marketplaces. Again, these are Web 2 applications that sort of bolt on top of Web 3 APIs. I think the way to solve this, the approach that we're taking at Atomic Forum, is try to get the highest quality lore, history, milestones, context on chain and associated with them, and then work with third-party API providers, whether it's like Block Party. I know Vlad and his team are very excited about this, providing our own API or the places, have that available such that when you ask for, give me all the information about this collection, or give me all the information about this NFT, the lore comes along with it. So you're not, as artists, having to add the same description of a collection to 20 different marketplaces or all these different like Linktree or marketplace clones or et cetera. Like, those are great. But we think the solution is get this into at the API level, get it on chain, and then allow apps and dApps to sort of pull that data, and any other app or dApp that needs it can then pull it in and showcase this. This is kind of what's happening with White Walls. We have a light integration with them where when like Dave Krugman's Drive series, you can go to the app right now, hit a QR code, and they're able to pull all of the lore that we've associated. It's like 200 tweets about the event start, like the history, the videos, the context is all there permanently on chain with Arweave, also with IPFS. So you have this sort of forge-proof detection of the SID, so you know the things have not been manipulated, and all that information is there. Whether Twitter goes away, whether Dave gets his X account deleted, whether any of the other people that sort of added and contributed to that story go away, it's all there permanently. And we think that is the right approach. It's a harder approach. It's a little bit more time consuming to do this. We're working on ways to automate this process for artists and curators and collectors. But for us, that preservation is key, because whether it's 1 year from now, 2, 10 years from now, it's going to happen. Marketplaces will blow up, business models will evolve. And if you're reliant upon mutable, changeable storages and business models in a very fast-paced, dynamic space, it is going to happen. And that's not a criticism. We want people to experiment. We want people to explore. It's part of the game. It's part of like what allowed like these very novel, I mean, Transient Labs, God bless them. They're pushing the boundaries with all sorts of minting contract types, et cetera, et cetera. These are not standard contracts. They've really kind of pushing the boundaries and giving artists new tools. But some of those changes provide incompatibilities with what might be on a display. We were a hardware company first at Atomic Forum, and we had to like, you know, whether it was the squiggles or using HTML and JavaScript, or whether it was what's the other one? There's a bunch of like autoglyphs and there's a lot of on-chain art that use like SVGs. Like we want artists to be able to explore, push the boundaries of these tools, and yet also provide good guardrails, best practices, such that they know good fallbacks, such that, you know, the media is preserved, the playback still works a decade from now, 2 decades from now, the stories are still there, the associations are still there, and so and also, and I want to say this too, we want to solve this in a very multi-chain, multi-wallet, multi-identity way. Like, I think a lot of people are building tooling for, you know, the ETH system or for Bitcoin ordinals or for Solana. By the way, I'm also talking on 2x. If I need to slow down, people can just chime in and tell me to decaffeinate here, folks. My coworkers tell me I'm a podcast on 2x, so we'll provide a transcript as a reply. But like, artists are not constrained to a single chain. Artists aren't even constrained to a single wallet. You know, people sometimes have like a primary wallet that they may sign things, but they may mint as anons and other chains. And so we designed our tooling such that, whether in Solana, I mean, Bitcoin support isn't there yet, but we've designed our framework such that we can have Bitcoin support. We have Tezos support. We have multi-chain collection support with Patrick Armadon, the Disobedience. It's a 5-chain collection. There's like 100 on ETH1. There's some on Arbitrum. There's some on Base. There's some on Solana. There's some on Bitcoin. Well, we're like, in order to support the community, we have to create a tool, a pattern, such that an artist can say, this is the totality of this collection. It's in all these different places. It's a big JSON blob. It's a little ugly, but at the end of the day, it pulls it all together, lets him sign them and assert, this is mine. And Catalina said something very important about trust. And Dave Krug was talking about this before he dropped or got off stage, which is like, Atomic Form is not trying to be the validator. We're not trying to be like the VeriSign of whose collections are what. But we do want to provide artists the ability to make those assertions, to sort of connect, like, these are my 5 wallets, and these are my 20 collections, or 100 collections, or in Brinkman's case, like 150 collections. And we want to provide tooling such that if you say, is this a authentic Brian Brinkman? Well, it will look at the signatures. We should be able to look at, hey, he signed these 150, and so anything within those 150 collections are bona fide, authenticated Brian Brinkman objects, and anything else is a forgery, it's a copy, or you should look at it with suspicion. It could be potentially an integration with a MetaMask or a Phantom wallet. It could be a potential integration at a marketplace level, but that sort of like green check mark, at least that there is some sort of assertion made by someone with control of Brian's keys that this is in fact him, right? And providing artists with that tooling can start to provide some social mechanism by which we can provide maybe not the complete solution, but maybe a solution in as part of that paradigm. So this is going to take time for this all to kind of like eke out, but like the TLDR of Atomic is we are building structured attestations to bring off-chain like context, history, lore to NFTs, these new on-chain collections that we've created, and wallets, such that we are this sort of middleware between the true on-chain data that you get for free for being a blockchain, but the Web2 data that wants to consume this, but instead has to recreate it because it's not on-chain. We want to be that layer that says, take the most important parts that are stuck in Web2, get them on-chain connected, and then anyone else from that point forward can just take and read that information to their app, their dApp, in their marketplace. And therefore, if the next marketplace goes away, fine, fuck it. The next marketplace can still download the lore that was associated, that anyone had access to, that the artist already created, the collector's already created, and the next one that comes up can bring it all online again. That, I think, is the proper approach versus, oh, damn, MakersPlace, or oh, darn, known origin. It's like, well, that was going to happen. Let's plan for that eventuality now, preserve it such that it will always be there. And I'll pause here because I can go through many other chains, but I figure there's a lot to probably discuss there.
Rick, thank you so much for joining. First of all, I hear the passion in your voice, and that's essential for anyone building in this space. And Catalina, I'm so sorry. I don't know why is it a Twitter space if I don't get rugged? And I couldn't hear you or Dave. So I was sitting in silence for about 20 minutes, but thank God for Milton's show notes. He takes these very detailed little show notes. I was kind of trying to keep along the conversation by reading what he was just typing out for us. That being said, I'm really happy Rick also jumped on stage to not only contribute to the conversation, but break down a little bit about Atomic Form, because I actually do remember you guys as hardware, and everyone's been throwing this word around in Atomic Form in the comments as well. And so this really clarified a bit more in terms of the pivot you guys have made. And honestly, it looks like you identified a huge gap in the industry and are trying to fill it. I love to see it. I love to hear it. I actually want to definitely talk a little bit more off stage and just learn more about what you guys have planned for the next year. But it sounds like you're essentially really providing this tool for creators. Rick, can I just ask you, if people wanted to work with Atomic Form, what are the best ways in which they can reach out and do so?
Absolutely, and I try to make this not a pitch, because at the end of the day, it's the mission is the strategy, and if others follow along with us, I'm thrilled, right? Because that just
shill, baby, shill. You're allowed to shill.
But yes, follow us at Atomic Form, our Twitter handle, DM us. Go to atomiclore.io. You can see the various projects that we've already done. We're very proud of, like, say, Sam Spratt, where we did 200 tweets for the Monument Drop, that 30-day crazy period in 2023. One Love DAO, shout out to Jennifer, one of the first, actually the first proof of exhibition. 200 artists have signed attestation records that they were at NFTYC. They got credit, on-chain credit of their appearance. That was fantastic. Beeple's Human One, the full history, all the media citations, every time it was in Forbes, Wall Street Journal, all online. So you get to see some of these sort of top projects and other artists that are using the tool. But yeah, just follow us on Twitter, DM us or reply to this thread, just tag us. We would love to give people tours of it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we want to make sure the space is moving forward. And it can't move forward if the foundation is being rugged beneath us all the time. I mean, NFTs breaking because their IPFS links break or because they're in Web2 storage is a problem because our art breaks. It's just as problematic if our collections, our marketplaces, our communities, our connections, if they all go away too, it's equally painful and it's equally problematic. And we need to have this as a solve going forward. So thank you for the time to speak with us on stage. Appreciate you all.
I mean, I've been full-time since 2021, and it continues to amaze me that there's things like this going on that I don't know about. So I'm really happy you joined the stage. I know Jennifer had mentioned you guys in previous spaces as well. So I definitely want to connect and just talk more. But I did pin up top the tweets for reference for those that are interested to kind of check out. And I always reference Web 2.5 and how important it is for customers to have that type of experience where it's not too, Web3, but this is obviously a problem that you mentioned. And it looks like you guys are addressing it. So congratulations on everything that you've been building. Thank you again for taking the time to join us on stage. I do want to hand the mic over to Chaz. I see him patiently waiting. And then Catalina, I'm sorry, I think you also just threw up a hand, so we'll go back to you as well. But Chaz, thank you for joining us. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I was actually gonna tell you about my friend. Yes, I mean, I'm sure a lot of us know who Cass Vega is in this space. She's been around forever. Her and I had a really good meeting yesterday. They're doing she works with a project called Blue Water Solutions, and they're doing some really cool stuff too. Like they're gonna help me build a website that's like all the different aspects of all the photography, art, like writing, all the things I do, and like have it all like on chain and built from the ground up. And all Web3 style, like where everything's like, have my own smart contracts on my own platform, my own website, things like that. You know what I mean? And I actually mentioned, it's funny because the brings up because like I was mentioning that about Atomic Farm and like how could we integrate what's going on, what's happening with Atomic Farm once I get everything that set up over there too, in with like what they want to do for me, creating my own platform, my own like website. It's kind of my portfolio, but at the same time, a place you can go to and I can put like my own sovereign pieces just on that platform instead of like having it echo from another platform and come and aggregated, but actually having it on my own contract over there, like on my own, like basically essentially like creating my own platform, but like people can come to and get my art from me directly from me rather than having to go through a platform, which is really cool. Like I love what they're doing. So I'm still like in a very, very, very beginning stages, but like I just felt like I wanted to mention that because I feel like that was important to this conversation over here. You know what I mean? I invited her into the space. I don't know if she's gonna make it or not, but yeah. So I just want to mention that about her. Like it's just something really cool, because like I'm the king of like minting on I'm like, oh, look, a new platform. Let me throw something over there. I'm not scared to like, you know what I mean? Like throw something on a new platform and see if it's gonna work or not, and then if it's not going to work, then I just don't use it anymore. But like, or visit again when it's like, when it gets more steam or more, support behind it. But yeah, I got stuff like everywhere. Like I'm glad that like most of the stuff that I'm doing that I had on MakersPlace, almost like my original stuff there was like on the MakersPlace contract, which had like, I'm going to have to merge it into my own contract. But like, I was one of the first people to ever merge, import contracts from Manifold over on MakersPlace. That's how long I've been on there, So, I mean, so I'm glad that like a lot of my stuff on there is still on my own Manifolds, but like there is some stuff over there that was like originally there that like I don't want to. I worry about like it like not like having. I don't want to burn it or bring it down and like remint it because I wanted to have that provenance of like the date and when it got mentioned on the blockchain. You know what I mean? So that's one of the things that I worry about too. Is like when these platforms go away, like what do we do? What do we do with the original like the contracts that were there that like they weren't ours? Like that worries me. So yeah, interesting conversation.
Hey, thanks, Chaz. I think Vasia is having trouble hearing you, but again, I took some notes and I appreciate you sharing that information with us. If you would, also please put that in the comments, because it's the first time I've heard of that particular name. So we'd like to keep a record of those in the comments, and that gives us a good chance. If you've noticed, Vasia oftentimes goes back and writes incredible threads that highlights some of our great speakers on stage, and this helps give us a little bit of history of the chat that happens. So yeah, please feel free, if you would, go in the comments and put that recommendation down there. I think if I've learned anything today, it's that there's plenty of tools out there that I wasn't aware of as long as I've been in the space. Vasia just said the same thing. So I think this is healthy to have a lot of people who are more in the know than we can be at times, of what tools we actually have at our disposal. So I appreciate that, Chaz. Great advice. And hopefully we can avoid situations like this going forward, because I'm with you. As far as burning and reminting, you completely losing the context of time and place of when that artwork was released and made. So, Catalina, I think you had your hand raised. I wanted to transition over to you. You might be our last guest on the stage. We're coming up a little over 2.5 hours. But that's good. That means we had a great conversation today, and it was very engaging. But Catalina, I think you had one more hand up before we start to get to our closing remarks. So, Catalina, go
Yes,
ahead.
I did. Thank you so much. I'm always the last but not least. This is actually an amazing and incredible conversation, and I'm truly honored to be here. And Rick, it's a pleasure and honor to meet you, because I've felt just like what Vasia said earlier. I felt like I've started this space. so many new tools, so many new options, so many new features that are been building, and I am just staying away from it, from most of it, because sometimes I just want to focus on creating art. Sometimes I want to focus on creating on trying to share it on social media. But one thing that is making me liking the atomic form even more is the fact that social media is a really powerful tool, and everyone who has the charisma, anyone who has the knowledge, the skills, how to promote themselves, are doing the best that they can. But there's one thing that I kind of hate the most about Twitter or X, is the fact that if you tweet a couple of things per day and share at least 20 of your friends, you lose so much of that history that you've been building. And there's so many stories that I've shared on Twitter. And do you know what I do now? I have a personal Discord, and I'm using this personal Discord, I'm using some of the channels just so I can copy the address, the link to my tweets, so I can keep a record of them back, because even a month ago I don't remember what happened. There's so many things that happen in this space. There's so many stories that we share every single day, and we try to record that. But at the same time, it's so easy to lose and so easy to forget that even last year I don't remember many of the things that happened. And those are moments that really made me realize why I'm here. Every time I feel discouraged, every time I feel so many challenges and the weight of the world and the weight of this space, the things that keep me going are the communities, the people, the inspiration, the conversations that we have here, and also every single step and achievement that we've been experiencing in this space. But we're losing it. Whether it's because the tech is breaking, whether it's because we're forgetting about it, because we're getting overwhelmed with so much data and so much more that's happening in the space. So if I would love to learn more about this tool, because it really is the thing that we can preserve our legacy, because this art, everything that we create right now, this is our legacy. And if we don't preserve it, who else will? Markets are just coming and going. And as much as it pains me to see what happens with MakersPlace, it's just another cycle at the end of the day, and what is left is our legacy and what we built here, and what's going to leave after us. So thank you so much for doing this. I would love to know more even of the stage. So it's truly an honor to be here and to know you guys. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing. Both you and Vasia and Rick, thank you so much for everyone who joined today. And I had the best 2.5 hours of my life today. And thank you for everything that you're contributing.
Thanks, Catalina. No, you have great input, and I hope that that was the upshot of today's conversation was people learning some new options that they didn't know they have. And so, as long as you've been in the space, and I didn't realize that you were also one of the first people to be onboarded onto MakersPlace. And what a nice way for them to onboard you to give such a helping hand. It sounds like they were a great boon to you as a beginning artist. But yeah, thank you. And again, I hope everybody will put all these comments in the chat here. I saw that Jenny Pepin already did that, and she turned me on to a couple things like OneHub that I wasn't aware of today, and really hadn't heard Atomic Lore's story until we had Rick up on today. So if there are these and more, please share those on the timeline, and there's a good chance you'll even see that in a recap on the post that Vasia puts together, when she oftentimes does her threads after the show. But I know Vasia always likes to land this plane, so to speak, with some takeaways. So I'm going to let Vasia jump in and give us some of those takeaways as we close this down.
Yeah, key takeaway is get a burner phone, because nothing makes me FOMO more when I can't hear the speakers on the stage, but I see everyone throwing up all these emojis. So I guess that's why we have the recorded spaces. Catalina, thank you for jumping in, and Chaz, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I couldn't hear you guys, but appreciate everyone's time and everyone who participated and joined the conversation. These are definitely meant to be community-driven conversations. And honestly, one of the key takeaways at the end of the day for me is I think the importance of these types of conversations, not only to survive as an industry, but in order to grow and to grow in a direction that we're proud of and we want to be going down. I think it's really important to be having these open, respectful, and just real conversations. And that's one of my goals with the podcast, is to really foster that type of environment where we can exchange ideas. Like Milton mentioned, there was platforms and tools that I haven't even heard of. So it was definitely productive from my perspective. I hope everyone feels that way as well. And at the end of the day, the other key takeaway, as cheesy as it sounds, I'm going to say it, we're in it together. We're building together. This is not a blame game. No one's hating on MakersPlace. I actually want to thank them again for their contributions to this space. And at the end of the day, I mean, Rodeo put it well. Kayvon from Rodeo, the reason they're calling it Rodeo is because it's the Wild West. We're all making it up as we go. And it's really important to take a second, understand, like, we don't know all the information. There's a lot going on behind the scenes we're not aware of. And we're hoping that everyone is making decisions based off of the best of their abilities in these moments. So it's about supporting each other is what I'm trying to say. Milton, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, but I just want to quickly mention, guys, I'm going to pin up top real quick and shill moments for a second. We do have a newsletter that went live. We've been doing this for the last couple of months, but I just want to mention to people that maybe are not as familiar, we do have a newsletter that goes out, just keeping you guys up to date with things that we're working on behind the scenes as an agency, as well as just the podcast. You know, a little friendly reminder, each week we host these Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern, and our goal is to really focus on just trending important topics and conversations that we think that are healthy and important for the space to have. In case you missed any previous episodes, it is all streaming on major streaming platforms, so Spotify, Apple Music, the works. Make sure to go check us out. And Milton, if you have nothing else to add, I mean, you can close us out with another key takeaway, or just DJ us out with some good music like you started us off today. And I just, again, thank you guys for tuning in, for joining. I know this was a long space, but I appreciate everyone's time and contributions. We wouldn't be here without you.
Yeah, I think you summed it up well. I'm just going to take us out with some music, and I look forward to joining the conversation next week, same time, same place, Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Thanks, everybody. Thanks to all of our great guests, and thanks again to MakersPlace. I do also appreciate what they have done for this space. Cheers, everyone. Talk soon.
Thanks for tuning in to Moments the Podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe and follow us to keep up with all the latest trending Web3 topics. Join us every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern on X for our live space and be a part of the dialogue.